You're watching. Everybody that comes in, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that sub button. Tell us where you're watching from. Make sure you're interactive in the chat. I got a couple of late night clips that I want to play for us because I got to go live for you guys. Probably more than once just for the sake of me not going live on Friday. My bad about that, you guys. So, schedule's a little warped, you know. Me and wifey doing different things, back in the gym, things like that. So, things should still stay the same, though. Just a little busy on Friday. So, shout out to everybody that hung in there with us. I'm going to jump into the live stream clips. You guys be interactive in the chat. Hit that like button. Hit that sub button. If you have any questions, make sure you ask us in the chat. And, yeah, let's get right into the live stream. Let's see who I want to play first. Reasoning. All right, so let's start with I know I got Nick Fuentes to start, so I guess it's right. It's only right that we start there. Purge Viral covered him, and he's just kind of going off on President Trump. Just about Trump, the Republicans, what they're doing, Thomas Massie's loss, how Trump's a total failure. So I want to start with that first, and then we'll jump into the Stephen A. Smith clips with Brandon Tatum.
What has to be done is that the GOP has to be destroyed. Trump, the cabinet, the leadership, they have to be utterly destroyed. And I mean...
So shout out to Purge Viral. He's a channel favorite. We watch him over here often. You guys check out his channel when you get a chance. But here you have Nick talking about the GOP needing to be destroyed. You know, and I know a lot of that is connected to Thomas Massie's loss because a lot of people were upset about that. And they felt like it was a setup. And they felt like Trump endorsed Ed Gilrine for no reason at all because nobody knew who he was. So there's like a lot behind that. Let's keep watching.
I mean that politically, of course. And if we can't defeat them through the primary, if we can't defeat them by rallying the young people and the Israel critics to, by maybe 1% eking it out against their well-funded endorsed challenger, then who can destroy the GOP? Who can degrade them? Who can weaken them? Who can maim and wound them in such a way that they can be taken over? The Democrats. The Democrats. Democrats aren't doing this stuff. Democrats, there was a Democrat today that said, let's get rid of the ICE detention centers and put all the pro-Israel people in it. Now, that's pretty extreme. The Democrats are also signing a letter saying we should acknowledge Israel's nuclear program. The Democrats are voting against Trump's war in Iran. The Democrats voted to release the Epstein files. Now, I'm under no illusions. Yes, the Democrats are heavily influenced by the Israel also. But let's also be honest. 80% of Democrats oppose Israel right now. There are no boomers, evangelical dispensationalists that worship Trump or worship Israel religiously that are going to hold the Democrats back from criticizing Israel. As a matter of fact, it's the opposite. The older liberals and the younger progressives alike, at the minimum, they don't like Netanyahu. At the most, they don't like Israel that much. And by the way, that is why the table has been set as such. That is why you got people like Randy Fine and Mark Levin and the rest of them. They hate that we're going to the Democrat side. And that's why they say it's Trump and the Trump supporters and Israel against the Democrats and the Muslims and the communists and the Chinese and so on. Because they know the Democrats can actually hurt the Israel-controlled GOP. And they know that maybe the Groypers can't turn an election. We can't change the outcome in a statewide race or even in a primary like this where there's tens of millions of dollars spent. But they do know that maybe if we lead the charge to break with the GOP, Democrats can get in, and the Democrats are merciless to Republicans. Impeachment, subpoenas, depositions, investigations, you name it, and they will meaningfully hurt the GOP apparatus, which again, Once you understand the GOP apparatus is controlled by Israel and it's impenetrable. It can't be overcome in a primary. It can barely be subverted, all these things. Then you recognize it just has to be punched in the face by the Democrats and needs to be dealt a crushing blow in the midterms, and in particular to this administration. Trump needs to be made a toxic brand. Everybody around him must suffer as a result of their proximity to him politically. The party itself has to lose money because its donors need to lose faith in their ability to win. It must be tangibly and meaningfully weakened. And only then, I think, can something grow from within the right-wing movement that might stand a chance at replacing it?
I don't know, I am not so sure about that, and it may sound so easy, but why did we not saw one person in the past 2 years rising up against the GOP, rising up against Trump? Because I think it's actually very hard in reality, because the GOP,
I think we have seen it. And again, shout out to Purge Viral. You guys can check out his channel whenever you get a chance. I think we have seen it. I think that's why everyone was so devastated by Thomas Massie's loss, right? Like, you have the likes of him. You know, some people were thinking that Thomas Massie was a Democrat because so many people were upset that he lost. You know, people who weren't familiar with politics. And no, you know, we knew that Thomas Massie was a Republican that was, you know, opposing a lot of things that Trump's GOP, he would sometimes call it, was doing, right? Nick Fuentes, when he went over why Thomas Massie's loss was so bad for America, this is one of the things that he stated, right? That we don't have a lot of Republicans right now standing up against the GOP, right? So it almost seems like they can do whatever they want, like they're the merciless ones. But in return, it is the Democrats. We know that once the Republicans lose the House, because they're not going to keep everything that they have right now, all we're going to do is see impeachment after impeachment after impeachment. And Nick knows that, right? So he's saying this is why it has to be the Democrats, because they're the only thing that can stand up and really punch it in the face. We don't have a lot of Republicans within the GOP willing to stand up to the GOP.
on paper it looks like they're still strong, but in reality, they're not that strong anymore. No one supports them at this point. No one likes them anymore. So I think we should have seen a person like this now already. And by the way, isn't it kind of ironic that
hackers, but we can't
understand where many of these people are coming from? The GOP, they have to be destroyed because what they did is not okay.
I think that's really the only way. But you need to understand, for people that say, oh, the Israel lobby defeated Massie, it's more complicated than that. The GOP is an Israel-controlled outfit. It's an Israel-controlled syndicate. And realistically, it was not necessarily Israel that did it. It was Israel using Trump and the GOP like a glove. And so, yes, they are the backers, but we cannot discount Trump is the problem. The GOP is the problem. Trump could have, think about it this way. Trump could have easily said, I don't appreciate what Massie did, but he is America first. Maybe I'm under certain constraints, but he's America first, and he's a voice that is pushing the envelope. If Trump were really America first, he would not oppose Massie on ideological grounds or at all. Trump didn't need to oppose him. Trump didn't need to go this hard. As a matter of fact, he could have supported him. And if Trump supported Massie, maybe Massie wouldn't have lost. But Trump went all in against him. And he went all in against him because Massie didn't vote his way, and his way is with the Israelis. This is what I'm trying to tell you.
Hey, have you been researching dental implants? Did you know you can now get permanent teeth in just 24 hours? With most traditional...
You have to pick a side right now. It really is one or the other. There's no middle ground where you can be a pro-Trump guy that happens to support Iran and you're not obsessed with Israel and you don't like foreign aid, but you support the GOP. It don't work like that. Okay? Because Israel controls this party, and if you're not down with that, you're out. Trump made it very clear a few months ago. He said specifically, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, they all suck. And who I love is Mark Levin, Laura Loomer, and Ben Shapiro. He literally said the words, they are not MAGA, and Mark Levin is. He said the words, Alex Jones, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Piers Morgan, they are not MAGA, Mark Levin is. He made it that way. He said, if you're against the war, you're not MAGA. If you want the Epstein files, you're not MAGA. We don't want your vote. They are. He made it this way. The party made it this way. This is the way that it is. And so who is actually the biggest problem? It is these people like Matt Walsh at the Daily Wire. Because Ben Shapiro is a with the hat, and he's going to go on TV and say, Israel's the only thing that matters. I only care about the... And you're all going to know, oh, okay, it's another pro-Israel. But guys like Matt Walsh and Benny Johnson, for that matter, sort of a letdown, thought he was going in a different direction. Jack Posobiec, Mike Cernovich, these people all go out there and they say, hey, listen, guys, I'm not in favor of the foreign aid either, and I don't support the war. I think it's a big mistake, and I think the Epstein files need to go out. Trump has seriously mishandled this, but we need to support the president and his immigration agenda because blah, blah, blah. That is an archetype, and that is how they're getting people to stay on the plantation. And people think you can be pro-Trump without being pro-Israel. You can't, because the second that you intimate you're really willing to go against Israel, you get kicked out. You can say, I don't like any foreign aid. Okay, vote against it. See what happens. You can say, I'm against the war in Iran. Vote for the War Powers Resolution. See what happens. You can say, I want the Epstein files to be released. Force Mike Johnson to bring it to the floor for a vote. See what happens. You will lose Trump. You'll lose the GOP. So it's all good until you're actually meaningfully against Israel, and then you're out. So those are the terms, and those are the rules of engagement. And I saw there was a video today from Steve.
I mean, there's a lot more tolerance for things like that now. And I've said this a couple of times. I've said that there's a lot more leeway for people to come in and speak the way that they feel about the whole pro-Israel agenda, and if they actually want to support it, and if they don't, right? I mean, many times on the live stream, I've told you guys what's frustrating for me is when people are like, oh, if you're in any way supporting Palestinians or Gaza or anything like that, then you must be anti-Semitic. And I said, that's ridiculous, right? There are people who literally just are anti-war, right? Like, they don't particularly care for war and to see people die and to see a country be devastated. And I don't think if they feel like that, that means that they're anti-Semitic. So now I feel like is the time where we see more people like Nick Fuentes being platformed, right? And it's okay for him to say, listen, like, as America, we don't want to support Israel. We don't want to give Israel money. We don't want to aid to their wars, especially if it has nothing to do with us and they started. We don't want to be drug into things. And now that's actually okay. There was a point in time if people spoke like that, they would lose platforms. They would get deplatformed. They would get blacklisted, right? And Nick talked about how he experienced some of that within his career, and while he was experiencing it, no one came to his aid, on the Republican side from Trump's camp. And this is part of the reason why we see Nick Fuentes so frustrated with Donald Trump pretty much at this point in his career.
Stephen Miller, for those that don't know, he was one of the most vocal, outspoken voices inside the administration in favor of the war with Iran. I have that on good authority. He is the deputy chief of staff, very influential over Trump, and he was one of the most gung-ho, most militaristic in support of going to war with Iran. What did he do today after Thomas Massie's loss? This glib, arrogant, ugly got on Twitter with his MAGA hat on, almost sarcastically, contemptuously, with disdain, got on a video and said, Thomas Massie lost because he opposed the president's immigration agenda. He voted against mass deportations and the border wall and the big, beautiful bill, and that just goes to show that this is still Trump's party and Trump still got it. It could not be more obvious what these people are doing. Mark Levin, Randy Fine, Stephen Miller, they are grinning with contempt as they put on their MAGA hats and say, God saved Trump so he could fix immigration. And we defeated these radical left Islamo-Marxists that are disloyal to him in Congress. When in reality, they are all there to support Israel. They don't give a shit about immigration.
No, they don't. Of course not, because many of these people, they're just paid actors who are like acting, faking, cosplaying.
Sure. There's a lot of people that started out like they cared a lot about immigration and what was going on with it. But now the numbers are just frustrating people, which is part of the reason I think, other than the economy feeling like crap to the everyday worker, right? Some people seeing gas go to $6, $7 a gallon. Some places it's reasonable, right? I mean, yeah, sure. If you're up in the mountains in Pennsylvania, you might find gas for $3.83 a gallon, right? But you're not gonna find that at like just the average city right now. Most people are at $4, $5, $6 right now, right? So other than things like that, you have people extremely frustrated with President Trump, right? They're not even seeing the deportation numbers that they expected. I mean, at this point, I tell people like, come on, President Obama has deported way more illegal immigrants than this administration has. President Trump hasn't even come to, I think, a quarter of what President Obama did at this point. So yeah, where a lot of people are not seeing a lot of things that they voted for when it comes to President Trump, and they're frustrated about that now. And then you have people that did vote for him, and they're just as frustrated. And that's something that I saw on the rise probably around last November, December. I want to say I really saw an uptick in people who voted for President Trump being frustrated.
Lying about almost everything. They really want us to believe that some of these people, they want to make America great again. Kind of weird.
Which was supposed to
Of the country where they're actually loyal to, and this is Israel, and this has to stop.
I want to say to Stephen Miller, so Thomas Massie, his loss is a good thing because he voted against the BBB, which was supposed to, once and for all, do mass deportations and secure the border. Hey, by the way, what's going on with the mass deportations and the border wall? Are we getting that? Thomas Massie had to go because he's not supporting Trump's immigration agenda. I'm sorry, what is the status on that? I haven't heard anything about mass deportations. There is no border wall. There are no mass deportations. And Stephen Miller was behind some effort to legalize H-2A seasonal agricultural workers that are illegal to shield them from deportation. So what the are you talking about? Didn't Trump just get back from Beijing and talk about bringing in 500,000 Chinese students because the universities need the money? You know those radical left universities that we're apparently fighting? We need China's F1.
Yeah, and that's what Nick's referring to. Those radical left universities. Like God, what is one of them? Was Columbia one of them? That President Trump put that they came under fire because a lot of their pro-Israeli views, right, and their pro-LGBTQ views and their DEI programs. Yeah, all of those people came under fire, and now it seems like, oh yeah, we should let 500,000, Asian students in from Beijing because these universities need the money so badly, right? After it was money that was defunded from the colleges, taken from them to be put elsewhere because President Trump didn't appreciate their participation in the DEI program. Well, what do you think bringing over 500,000 students from Beijing is exactly? Right? Because if they're not in America, what do you think you're actually doing? And this is the stuff that people like Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson are starting to point out that people are paying attention to. And I think it's also aiding to President Trump's favorability rating plummeting. That's why it's so low. It's literally in the can right now.
On student visas to invade our country because they need to fund those radical left universities that we apparently hate. And you're going to tell me this is about the immigration agenda the next week? It's not. They just got done telling us at the Trump Doral in Miami, Florida, that mass deportations is a toxic issue.
Dude, guess how much it cost me to make sure my family gets $1 million if something ever happens to me? You'll never get it.
Simultaneously, we're in a war with Iran. That wasn't toxic. That wasn't politically unfeasible, politically impossible. That is something that apparently was not constrained by gridlock and Democrat opposition. That's something that they could do. So Randy Fine and Stephen Miller and the rest of them, all these pro-Israel that only care about Israel, that are the appointed spokespeople of MAGA, they're all out there saying, you got to be with Trump for immigration. Trump's going to go out and he's going to endorse his guy. We need loyalty. And they are using him like a human face mask. It is a skin, or rather it is a suit made out of Trump's skin. Hey, Goyim, vote for immigration and Trump. And then they're going to get in and go to war with Iran and do all those other things that we talked about. And they're going to say it's about Western civilization, and this is about fighting the left, and if you're not with this, you're with the left. I'll tell you what I'm not with. This is all I know. Life gets pretty complicated sometimes. I like to boil it down to what I know. And what I know is that a political coalition that not only tolerates, but elevates and promotes as its leaders Mark Levin, Randy Fine, Ben Shapiro, Laura Loomer, Barry Weiss, Stephen Miller. This is not a movement I want to be a part of. This is not a movement that I can support. And if supporting the release of the Epstein files, opposing a war in Iran, opposing foreign aid to Israel, if that means disloyalty to that political movement, if that means you're going to come in and send Pete Hegseth and $30 million in Jewish billionaire money to unseat me, then who needs that party? Who needs that political movement? Because that is not America first. At all. And I don't care what you say about immigration. Not a lot of doing, a lot of talking. I don't care what you say about immigration. I don't care what you say on Twitter. I don't care about the rhetoric. That's not America first. And I can't support anything that isn't America first. That's the bottom line, and that's what people need to understand.
And there was one point in time where Nick speaking like this would be of detriment to his career. Now people platform him, and that's because a lot more people have started to see what was going on, and it looks like what he's been saying. It looks like what Candace Owens has been saying. It looks like a lot of people are now starting to see, like, oh yeah, if this is what this looks like if America is in Israel's back pocket, we don't want any play in that. Like, we can support Israel, that's fine. We understand it, especially think about the Americans that are Christians, which there are many of, right? We can support Israel. We understand what it says about the Bible. Whatever stance you take, those people do exist. But now the people, what I'm saying is that there's been room made for people that are like, no, we don't support that. No, if Israel wants to go do something like that, sure, they could go do it. But what does that have to do with the United States? Why do we have to step in? At one point in time, these people would be deplatformed and blacklisted and taken off of the internet and be censored. Now there's room for them. And that's the reason why Nick has the audience that he has. It's not like it's just groypers that agree with him. There's people that are in both camps that actually do agree with what he's saying.
Yes, it is an Israel issue. More than that, it is Israel's relationship with the GOP, how they are using it, steering it, as they always have. Since Reagan, since Bush, the neocons, these people, the Likudniks, they have been in control of the GOP, and all I know is this apparatus needs to be shut down. That's all I know. This Rupert Murdoch, Fox News, Trump, Ike Perlmutter, Paul Singer, Miri Nadelson, AIPAC, Trump thing needs to be fucking destroyed. And I don't care who does it. It can be James Fishback. It can be Thomas Massie. It can be Steve Bannon. It can be the Democrats. It can be AOC. I don't care who does it. Fuck them.
That's kind of crazy. Yeah, now we know Nick is a little bit on the overzealous side when he goes to AOC. I don't think I've ever heard Nick say anything positive about AOC, and he's like, you know what? I'm at a point where it's like, I don't care who it is, it just needs to be somebody, right? And a lot of this is coming from, they want people that are America first, right? They're actually starting to distinguish, right? And there's a line being drawn between MAGA and people who are America first. And I remember when this happened, because I told you guys, I said ever since Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson sat down, it's like there was this split straight down the middle of MAGA, and we've seen it ever since then. And this is where I've seen like Nick be able to really shine. The likes of Nick Owens, the likes of what Tucker Carlson is saying, right? Candace Owens, right? These people are actually being listened to now, and they're having people be on their side, because people are like, no, if we are America and we are in Israel's back pocket, there's a problem with that. If anything, it needs to be the other way around. We're not supporting that part, right? So even people that support Israel are okay with us supporting Israel, but they don't want us aiding to their wars, right? They don't want us aiding, right, to massacres. If Israel starts a fight, they're like, okay, Israel started it. We don't want to come to their rescue all the time.
Randy Fine, Mark Levin, and Laura Loomer. I don't know where I'm going to land. I am not going to land side by side with those sick and disgusting, vile traitors to the country. That's all you need to know. So that's why I'm voting Democrat in 26. Pyrrhic victory. And this is what I want. All these pro-Israel Republicans that are doing their little victory lap today, I saw Stephen Chung say, fuck around and find out. That's what happens when you mess with the president. All these people celebrating today, I am going to make it my sole mission to take those words from tonight and shove them up their fucking ass in the midterms. Congrats, Stephen Chung say, fuck around and find out. That's what happens when you mess with the president. All these people celebrating today, I am going to make it my sole mission to take those words from tonight and shove them up their fucking ass in the midterms. Congratulations. You have an empire of dirt. Congratulations. Trump still has influence with his Jewish money over the Republican primary in Kentucky. Congratulations. I hope.
Yeah, and that's the thing that people need to pay attention to. If they're like, well, why is Nick so upset? Dude, that primary in Kentucky was insane to me. I was actually paying attention to it. I remember going to work the next day and asking my mentor, who is a boomer, hey, do you know who Ed Gilrine is? He's like, no, I'm not too. Where did that race take place at? I'm like, it took place in Kentucky. It was a guy who was actually running against Thomas Massie, even though we're both Republicans, right? And the reason why I said that is because we reacted to this. I believe it was literally the next day, a couple of hours after Massie's loss. Liberty Lockdown pulled out. He made some great points. Shout out to the Liberty Lockdown YouTube channel. And he said, dude, Thomas Massie had to go. Like, he opposed every single thing that Trump wanted to do. Thomas Massie, and this is Liberty Lockdown talking, right? Check out his channel. He's like, he is everything Trump lied about being. Right, so this is why he had to go. He's like, Trump goes and he endorses El Gidron. And who is he? Does anybody know who he is? A lot of people, I remember doing live streams and saying, yo, chat, if you guys know who Ed is, put in the chat, Ed from Kentucky, you know who he is. Crickets, right? And I'm thinking to myself, like, dude, I've seen the guy around, heard of him, right? But really, anything outside of Kentucky, not too familiar with this dude. Very familiar with Thomas Massie. Very popular. Has had his position within his district, I believe it's over 12 years. The guy is popular. If you watch his concession speech, there's damn near a movement, right? They're screaming Massie. They want him to run again in 2028. All of these things are happening. So I'm thinking to myself, like, how could this guy lose? Like, it made no sense to me that Thomas Massie lost. And that's the reason why it was so important that I cover it. But you had many, many people that day saying, oh, this was a hit for America. This was a bad thing. Like, man, America really took a bad loss with Thomas Massie. Dude, there's a movement around the guy, right? So they literally said this guy is everything that Trump lied about being.
Hope that goes well for you in the rest of those races in the midterms. Now you are begging for it. You celebrated the defeat of the one congressman that actually cared about keeping the promises, about no new wars, about disclosure on the Epstein files. You're 30% approval. You are the most unpopular president in history. There has never been a more stark betrayal of a political movement in recent memory. You're celebrating and participated in and accomplice in the defeat of the only congressman that was popular, that was true ideologically to the origins of the movement. Now you have to be utterly destroyed. That is why I say I am going out in 26 with pleasure, enthusiastically going out for the Democrats. I will be encouraging all my followers to go out for the Democrats. I am supporting the Democrats at this point out of pure vengeance. They are not, the Republicans are not on our side. And right now, the Democrats are the lesser of two evils.
These are great. They're so comfortable. This is a long review.
Okay, like I completely agree with Nick with the fact that like the GOP, they have betrayed us, like what they're doing is so wrong. Again, it's like Israel first instead of like America first. With Donald Trump also, that's crazy, right? This is all happening with Donald J. Trump, who said that he was going to give us America first politics. I'm going to be different than all these other people. Golden age, we're going to drain the swamp. Dude, you are a joke. Okay, but we know this now. Trump is a clown, the GOP is a clown. No one should vote for them anymore because they don't deserve our vote. Even though they really think that they're like entitled to our vote. I get it. But what I don't understand, and I kind of disagree, what makes Nick think that like the Democrats will actually solve these kind of problems? What makes you think that like the Democrats would like, because he's, for example, he's talking about immigration. Do you really think that like the Democrats, they're like going to deport a lot of people? I don't think so. Do you think that like the Democrats, they're not influenced by like the Israel lobby? Of course they are. So I just don't understand. Don't get me wrong. I completely agree. The GOP is a joke. They did nothing in favor of you, they did nothing in favor of our country, excuse me, nothing in favor of me, nothing in favor of our country, probably also nothing in favor of you. But what are the Democrats going to do? Like, this is just a question. Like, let me know in the comments. If you know the answer, please let me know. But I'm not sure about it. This is something what I don't understand. Because, again, the Democrats and the Republicans, it's just like the same sides of, it's two different sides of the same coin. As Dan Bilzerian used to say, it's like two different cheeks of the same ass. That was kind of funny. That's kind of true, right? So, what are they gonna solve? What are they gonna solve? It's all useless. It's all useless. Like, some smart guy used to say, if voting would really make a difference, they wouldn't let you vote. I think that's almost like the case now. Do you really think that we can solve this problem with like voting? The Israel lobby is the biggest problem. No matter if you will vote left or right, you will still like vote for the Israel lobby. That's just how it is. And this is so sad. And as long as we don't like solve this problem, I'm not even sure if like voting will make an actual difference. They are gonna vote for the Democrats. Okay, they have like 4 years of like the Democrats. They're gonna win the midterms. The Democrats, yeah, they're gonna impeach Trump. They're gonna like punish him, of course. But then, okay, after that, Trump got punished, the GOP got punished, and then what are we gonna do then? This is something what I don't understand. If you know the answer, please let me know in the comments. Do you really think that like the Democrats, they are better now at this point than the Republicans? I think it's almost like not hard to like be better than the Republicans now, but I think like, do you really believe that like the Democrats can solve all these problems where Nick just complained about what the Republicans can't solve? I'm not sure about it. I think they can both. They both can do anything. They both, as long as they're controlled by the same lobby, it's going to be a hard time for them, right? No matter if it's left or right, Democrat, Republican, it's nonsense.
Randy Fine, Mark Levin, wherever they are not, is to me the lesser of two evils at this point. That's what has to be done. You won the battle against Thomas Massie. Let's see who wins the midterms. That's maybe what you weren't counting on. So, MAGA is dead. Trumpism, you can have it. You can have your Republican Party. The young people are out. You can have the boomers. You're all going to be dead.
I mean, let me go back some there. To some of what Purge is saying, I don't think he necessarily believes that the Democratic Party is going to fix everything. I don't think that's what Nick is saying. He was just clear in saying that right now he's doing this strictly out of vengeance. So he's just pissed off. Like, he just is not happy with the GOP. And he has been saying this for some time, that he's like, dude, I'm voting Democrat. I don't care who the GOP puts up. I'm not doing it, right? He feels like right now the GOP is controlled by the Israel lobby. He's not convinced that they could think on their own. He's not convinced that they're America first, right? He is convinced that there's a distinct difference between MAGA and America first. So I don't think he thinks that the Democrats are going to come in and fix everything. But to something that Purge was saying when he's like, does Nick think the Democrats are going to just come in and deport everybody? Well, I mean, Obama still has pretty much the standing record. Right? I mean, like, Trump's administration is not touching the amount of people that the Obama administration deported. It's just not, the numbers are literally not there. They're not even close. So it's like, I think Nick is just trying to point out that every single thing that the GOP has said up until, Trump got elected and then thereafter, it's been a lie. So there's no way that, he's going to go for that. Now, I'm not saying that I necessarily support everything that he says, but a lot of what Nick says, it is supported by what President Trump's favorability rating looks like. So that's where Nick is getting the support from. And not just him, but even people who voted for President Trump who are no longer happy with the way that things look. They're no longer happy with the way that the GOP looks. They're no longer happy with the way that his cabinet looks. They're not happy with the fact that he's not delivering on the promises he promised during this campaign trail. And this is why there's room now for people like Nick Fuentes to say these things, and the Groypers or Tucker Carlson's followers or Candace Owens' followers and so forth, because there's been many people that have stood up against us in the past and said, hey, we don't have a problem with aiding Israel in some way or supporting, but we can't be in their back pocket. Israel can't be running America. And that's why now there's room for people like Nick to say things like this, and they're no longer blacklisted. Because people are starting to see that, hey, there's actually some truth to this.
In favor of me, nothing in favor of our country. Probably also that was kind of funny. That's kind of true, right? So what are they going to solve? What are they going to solve? It's all useless. It's all useless. Like, some smart guy used to say, if voting would really make a difference, they wouldn't let you vote. I think that's almost like the case now. Do you really think that we can solve this problem with like voting? The Israel lobby is the biggest problem. No matter if you will vote left or right, you will still like vote for the Israel lobby. That's just how it is. And this is so sad. And as long as we don't like solve this problem, I'm not even sure if like voting will make an actual difference. Then you're gonna vote for the Democrats, okay? Then you have like 4 years of like the Democrats, or they're gonna win in the midterms. The Democrats, yeah, they're gonna impeach Trump. They're gonna like punish him, of course. But then, okay, after that, Trump got punished, the GOP got punished, and then what are we gonna do then? This is something what I don't understand. And if you know the answer, please let me know in the comments. Do you really think that like the Democrats they're better now at this point than the Republicans? I think it's almost like not hard to like be better than the Republicans now, but I think like, do you really believe that like the Democrats can solve all these problems where Nick just complained about what the Republicans can't solve? I'm not sure about it. I think they both can do anything. They both, as long as they're controlled by the same lobby, it's going to be a hard time for them, right? No matter if it's left or right, Democrat, Republican, it's nonsense.
I'm Shane, the founder and CEO of Mudwater, and people keep asking us, what's the difference between Mudwater and mush?
Randy Fine, Mark Levin, wherever they are not, is to me the lesser of two evils at this point. That's what has to be done. You won the battle against Thomas Massie. Let's see who wins the midterms. That's maybe what you weren't counting on. So, MAGA is dead. Trumpism, you can have it. You can have your Republican Party. The young people are out. You can have the boomers. You're all going to be dead in 10 years anyway, no offense, if you are one. You can have all these brainwashed boomers that watch Fox News. Take a look at the exit polling. Every demographic under the age of 55 supported Thomas Massie. That's the future. So I will gladly take the L out the exit polling. Every demographic under the age of 55 supported Thomas Massie. That's the future. So I will gladly take the L. I'll gladly take a couple steps back while we wait for the demographics to change, and then it'll be our party. And in the meantime, let the Democrats attack you politically, let the funding run dry, let them impeach you, let them indict you. They're your problem now. I'm recusing myself from that fight. Let the Democrats return to power for a couple years. So that's my take on the situation. And by the way, that is the most important take that matters. This is why I said last week, it's not as simple as saying, oh, it's the Jews, it's Israel. We need to understand how these things work. We need to understand how politics works. So it's not enough to say, oh, the Israel lobby took them out, because you're going to get these convoluted, sophisticated counter-narratives from Michael Knowles and Benny Johnson and Mark Levin and the rest of them saying, no, it's a referendum on Trump. And this is what they always do. Why are we at war with Iran? Because of China. Why won't they release the Epstein files? Well, there's nothing in them. The Democrats would have released them. I mean, everything like this, there's some excuse. It's always something like that. And the boomers are always eating it up. No, we're not at war with Iran because of Israel. It's because of China. No, Massie didn't lose because the Israelis spent $30 million. It's because he went against Trump. No, the Federal Uprising isn't an opt to shut down anti-Israel activism. It's about not burning the flag. They always have something like this to throw out there. Even with the war in Iran, they said, well, they squandered a generational coalition. With the Epstein files, well, the press office handled that one terribly. No one can deny he mishandled that one. You always get these, like, subtle little narratives. They're not really addressing the core issue. So we have to be a little bit smarter. We have to anticipate that. Be a little more proactive. That's why I'm in favor of the Democrats, by the way. For people that say, why don't we just fucking endorse... Dan Bilzerian all week has been had a boner for me saying Nick Fuentes won't fucking endorse primary candidates. Yeah, because they lose. He goes, I don't know why he's backing the Democrats, because the Democrats can win. And the Democrats are going to stick it to the Republicans. And that's the only way that the Republicans...
Nick knows, and so for people who are confused about that, Nick knows that the Democrats could win because of how unhappy the American people are currently. So shout out to everybody in the chat that's letting me know about the sound. I know some of you guys aren't here all of the time. I have to distort the sound when we're doing long-standing watching. So I don't have a choice because they'll copyright me. Most of the time I do not get a copyright because I'm distorting my sound to some extent. And I can honestly say that probably like 96% of the time I don't get a copyright. But if I don't distort my sound anyway and my commentating is not consistent. So for those of you guys that aren't content creators, you probably don't know that stuff. Yeah, YouTube will copyright you. So it's like I have to distort some way, somehow. Some nights the echo is better than others. Some nights it's not on at all. It just depends. And when it's not on at all, usually YouTube hits me with a copyright in a couple of hours or the next day. So just bear with me on that. I am trying to work on that. I partially want to go to a different streaming software, and that's what I'm thinking about doing. At one point I was using vMix. I actually used vMix for my church, and I never had a problem using vMix, and I was able to go to multi-angle. So I'm actually thinking about going back to that. But we'll see. Right now, I hate getting complaints about the echo, but I know I have to distort the sound. So I appreciate you guys just bearing with me on that. But Nick is talking from the perspective of he understands that Trump's favorability ratings in the toilet. So as far as he's concerned, he's like, listen, the Democrats are the one that's going to be able to stick it to the GOP. I think a lot of people fantasize about voting for an independent candidate. But like Bill O'Reilly said on the record, they usually don't have the income. They don't have the funds, right? They can't raise the money that they need. That's why normally we end up picking from two of the major monsters, right? A Republican or a Democrat. But in this case, with Trump's favorability rating being in the can and people just being so upset about the war and how the economy feels, yeah, the Democrats are definitely going to be able to stick it to them. He knows that in the midterms they're going to lose. So Thomas Massie, I cannot disagree with Nick when he says every demographic under the age of 55 supports Thomas Massie. I cannot disagree with him on that. When I say that I was probably slightly a little ignorant to the I don't know, the following, dare I say, the crowd that's been behind Thomas Massie, it's like, yeah, I was a little bit ignorant there because, I mean, like, the guy's concession speech almost was like a victory speech. And I was like, dude, what is happening? How could this guy lose to Ed Gilwine? So I have no idea, like, how that happened, but obviously, Trump's endorsement still goes a long way. Starbound 1 said, I don't know if Democrats can win in November because of the massive gerrymandering and rule changing that Trump is doing. Yeah, shout out to Starbound. I see why you would say that. I know a lot of people are upset with it. I think even one state that was shocking to me, shout out to South Carolina, their Republicans actually said that they weren't going to change anything on their map because they didn't think it was fair. They said it's going to cause way too much chaos. It doesn't mean that it's not something they won't do eventually, but they actually were not in favor of the gerrymandering or the redistricting or changing the map at that moment because they said it would cause way too much chaos in the state for voters. And I was like, oh, well, what do you know? There's actually a state that gives a crap about the voters. Imagine that. So I didn't expect that to be South Carolina, Starbound. So when I actually saw that, I think I covered that a couple live streams ago, probably about 3. I was pretty shocked that that was the state. Let's keep watching.
Party can be taken over or transformed at the minimum to stop doing harm. I mean, the Democrats to stick it to them. Because that's what's good for us right now. So that's that. But we're going to move on. We're going to take a look at our...
Okay, like fair enough. And let me make this very clear. I understand where Nick is coming from. I still think it's I don't understand. We have been...
All right, so shout out to Nick for actually, being honest about how he feels about, the whole MAGA support and what he actually thinks when it comes to the midterms. I'm actually going to play this next one. Shout out to Valhalla VFT. Wow, they actually fired her. So I'm going to rework that title for a minute. But next up, we're actually going to take a look at the Tulsi Gabbard situation. From what I understand, she wasn't fired. She walked away. But some people think that it was actually a firing. So let's take a listen.
Well, that was just a week ago. And there's been some interesting developments in those JFK files since, because since that story came out, which of course they debunked as having never happened, well, we've now learned that those files that were supposed to be declassified for us, according to Donald Trump, will no longer be released. Oh, yes, those files that the CIA definitely didn't come and take out of Tulsi's office that she was declassifying. I'm sure President Trump has a great reason for that. That Donald Trump is going to resign as director of national. Minutes ago, at the time of me filming this, and that is that yes, Tulsi Gabbard has officially resigned as director of national intelligence. Now, did she actually resign, or was she maybe more forced to resign? Because I don't know, there was some weird stuff going on, like last week when we had that weird story about how the CIA raided her office and took all the JFK files, and that we've now found out that Donald Trump is going to block the release of the rest of the JFK files. That's bizarre. Those things couldn't be connected. But again, we're going to see, did she resign out of principle or not? Because that's going to be an important piece to see why this actually happened. So that's what we're going to talk about.
So that actually wasn't something, I think I covered that very lightly, if at all. Right? That was something that I covered very, very lightly because I was waiting to see what else was going to come of that. I'm like, that's odd. They ambushed Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national security. This makes no intelligence. This makes no sense. They bum rush her office. They take the JFK files that are already supposed to be released, and then probably about a week later, we see that she is leaving, right? Not fired, but that she's leaving. I think the reason why it's not fired is because they knew that people were aware of what happened with the JFK files, so they're like, oh, well, if we actually put it out there that she's fired, this might actually make us look guilty. So let's make it seem like, Tulsi wants to leave silently. I'm like, yeah, the math ain't mathing.
Found today's video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Helps the channel. Follow us on Patreon. Grab some America First, America Only merch. Also, guys, tonight, live 5 p.m. I know everybody is pretty black-pilled on politics right now following the Massie race. So we're going to have some fun tonight. We're going to do the 2028 presidential tier list, where we're going to go through and vote on all the potential candidates and see who we think has got the best shot of winning. Should be a fun one. All right, let's jump into the episode. Let's talk about it again. This just broke as of minutes ago. Tulsi has put out an official resignation letter, so we're going to take a look at that. And we're going to take a look at all the underlying pieces to this story that people may have forgot about, but I didn't because I saved all my clips. So let's do it. All right, we'll let my boy Aaron Love break this one because he's actually the one who sent me this originally for me to find out about this morning.
Breaking everywhere. Looks like Tulsi Gabbard is out as DNI, so she apparently put in her resignation letter today. It's breaking everywhere on X. Soon to be here. You heard it here first.
So yes, official resignation put in, and pretty quick turnaround here. She's going to be out by the end of next month. And immediately my thoughts were, okay, did she go down the road of Joe Kent? Did she actually resign out of principle? And we all know that Tulsi Gabbard literally ran all of her political campaigns for over a decade.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I'm not sure how much proximity you guys have to Tulsi Gabbard's her career, but she is basically historically anti-war. Like, that's just kind of how Tulsi is, and she ran with President Trump on his campaign trail on the fact, remember, wearing her MAGA hat, totally supporting Trump. She ran on the fact that President Trump would be the one to keep us out of the war. So I don't know how much you guys paid to the RNC, right? I saw the RNC, I saw the DNC. I made my wife watch both. We both paid attention to both, and I watched a little bit more of the RNC, but I wanted my wife to watch both because just to get her familiarized with kind of like how, both parties operate, because that particular election year, she paid the closest attention to the presidency. She paid the closest attention to how the two candidates ran, and I wanted her to see like what happens at the DNC, what happens at the RNC. This is something that Tulsi would say. I would see her there all the time with her MAGA hat on, promising us that Donald Trump is going to be the one to keep us out of the wars, right? Donald Trump is going to make sure that we don't go to war. So I think that Tulsi being a part of this particular administration was very conflicting for her. It was very conflicting for someone who ran on, hopefully on a promise she was thinking of President Trump that this man will make sure that we do not go to war. Now, Tulsi Gabbard is a war veteran. She's been to war. She's a decorated war veteran, and she still has been anti-war historically. So I think it was a struggle for her to want to support President Trump. I think that support was there. Like, she wanted to do it, but I don't think she supported the war and how it started or probably what was going on. Maybe not wanting to be called anti-Semitic had some play in there. But yeah, I mean, I was pretty sad to see this headline. I actually am pretty in favor of Tulsi Gabbard, but I can understand her feeling like, this man is no longer operating on the principles that he ran on. So, I have to step down. Much like Joe Kent, but it seems like when in reference to Tulsi, she said it was because her husband was dealing with, a rare form of cancer. That could be true. I don't want to discount that and say that it's not and the family's actually dealing with something terrible. But that actually could be true. So let's keep watching.
Specifically on one single issue, and that was essentially no war with Iran, and then when this war kicked off and she didn't resign, a lot of us who had supported her in the past said, but now that she's resigned, does that show that maybe we were a little too harsh? Well, we'd have to look at her resignation letter to find out why. So let's do that first, and then we'll break all this down. All right, so here we go. As of 30 minutes ago, Tulsi posted, I am deeply grateful for the trust President Trump placed in me for the opportunity to lead for this last year and a half. And she says, unfortunately, I must submit my resignation effective June 30th, 2026. My husband, Abraham, has recently been diagnosed with an extremely rare form of bone cancer. He faces major challenges in the coming weeks and months. At this time, I must step away from public service to be by his side and fully support him through this battle. Now, first thing, this is horrible to hear. You never want to hear anything like this about really anybody's loved ones, right? Whether you support this person as a politician or a government official or not. Absolutely terrible to hear. So definitely, hope and pray that her husband makes an absolute full recovery and that he ends up being okay. However, what it also means is that Tulsi did not resign out of principle at all. We would have much rather heard that she could, no longer serve an administration that was fighting an unjust war in Iran, considering, again, she ran her entire political campaigns off that for 15 years straight, much like Joe Kent did. But we found out maybe that's not the case. However, the thing is it does feel like this may be just an off-ramp resignation and that she was going to be fired anyway because Donald Trump has been talking to his cabinet about firing her for weeks now. Okay, so this story was actually over a month ago saying White House asked Gabbard to resign by the midterms. And at the time, rumors were saying Trump has been asking cabinet officials in recent weeks whether he should replace Tulsi Gabbard as the DMI, venting frustration about her leadership and that she shielded Joe Kent, a former deputy who undercut his rationale for war with Iran. Now, something else you might find interesting about this, Donald Trump has actually fired 4 cabinet members now in the last 2.5 months. And what's interesting about all 4? Oh, that's right. The only people he's fired are all women, as we can see. Now, good, bad, or indifferent on that, just a little bit interesting that he's wiping all the women out of his cabinet. And not all the men that are a problem, like, I don't know, Kash Patel, Pete Hegseth, Howard Lutnick, they're still fine. But anyway, I digress. Now, some other things to think about with Tulsi before we make our judgments on her on this one, because again, for those of you who don't know, I used to be a huge Tulsi supporter. I wanted her to run as Donald Trump's VP, and then obviously have been very, very let down with her abandonment of her values that she's portrayed over the last 15 years. We've all seen that, obviously. But maybe she has been doing good things behind the scenes that we don't know about. Now, we have to go back to understand why Donald Trump really, really doesn't like her. It all stems back to almost a year ago in that first Iran conflict. Now, if you guys don't remember, Tulsi actually came out and testified before Congress that the intelligence community continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon. Yes, the director of the National Intelligence herself said that.
Yeah, Yeah, I remember this. So he's probably going to play, her Senate hearing. And you guys are going to see Tulsi say this because I believe someone, I can't remember who asked her this because this was something that we actually covered when Tulsi said it. But she was asked, and I believe her response was that Iran was not up to or in the process of creating no type of nuclear wars. It wasn't something that was a rumor. It wasn't something that was in progress. It wasn't something that was taking place. So let's listen.
Assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003. The IC continues to monitor closely if Tehran decides to reauthorize its nuclear weapons program.
Now, keep in mind, that was the Director of National Intelligence, so America's own intelligence apparatuses had all come to the conclusion that Iran was not attempting to build a nuclear weapon. Okay. So obviously, Donald Trump's not going to be a fan of her saying that, and this was his response.
Wherever your journey takes you, get there in iconic style in a new Jeep Wrangler. Rugged and timeless.
Back when this happened.
People said that you don't believe Iran should be able to have a nuclear weapon, but how close do you personally think that they were to getting one? Because Tulsi Gabbard testified in March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon.
What she said, I think they were very close to having.
There you go. Donald Trump said himself, I don't care what she said.
Yeah, and that was interesting. A lot of people, I remember when he did that on Air Force One, when he said it like that, I don't care what she said. But that's your Director of National Intelligence, so how can you not care what she says? How can what she says not make a difference? How can that not have any impact on if we actually go to war or we aid to what Israel is doing or not? This is part of the reason why Trump's numbers tanked. Like, this is part of the reason why they went in the toilet. Because I would watch this happen, and I'm thinking to myself, Trump, the more you involve yourself with this war, the more the American people are not going to support it. Now, at first, when it started, you had people not saying much about it. You know, oh, I'm going to support my president, whatever he's doing. You know, I want to try to make sure that, you know, I'm being supportive. And yeah, like, we want to support our president. We don't want to get online and bash all of that is bad practice, people. Bad political practice. When Americans do that, or when somebody from any country is doing that, another world leader is watching and they think that the country is weak, especially when they don't deal with citizens that are disrespectful towards world leaders, right? But at the end of the day, like this right here, I think was gut-wrenching for Tulsi. I think that's the part that we won't see. Yes, if Abraham's actually going through that, of course, like the host says, I think we should definitely pray for her. We don't want to see anybody, any politician, whether you agree with them or not, any family member suffer in that way. Right. But I just think it's very interesting that we see President Trump on Air Force One saying, I don't care what she thinks. Right. After we have the Director of National Security testifying, saying that, yeah, this is actually not something that Iran is doing. So let's keep watching.
Which, again, pretty wild that you don't care what the Director of National Intelligence, who has access to all the information and intelligence coming from every intel apparatus in the United States, don't care what she has to say, huh? Okay, interesting. Well, we've all seen how that's worked out since. Now, apologies up front, you have to listen to this voice. I know it sounds like grating nails on a chalkboard, but it's important to understand what's going on with the administration here.
For Tulsi Gabbard and her office. They basically said that Tulsi Gabbard is running something of a shadow operation from her office. That she is personally, I was told, I met Tulsi, I don't know her well. I was told she's personally actually very anti-Semitic, and that she is heavily involved in a lot of the anti-Semitic influencer operations.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm sure. So again, now we know Donald Trump really doesn't like Tulsi. That was obviously made clear when she had the audacity to say that about Iran's nuclear program. And he's been thinking about trying to get rid of her for a while based off reports coming out of the White House. But again, this all comes off the heels of the story we did just last week. And I think they're probably very connected. Remember this?
Tulsi Gabbard's office. Agents hauled out dozens of boxes, files on the JFK assassination and MKUltra, the CIA mind control operation, which she was in the process of declassifying. Today's whistleblower said it during his deposition, and Congressman Napoleon Luna confirmed it.
Now, you remember this story? And why did it get interesting? Because, well, Jesse Waters deleted that off of his Twitter. Fox News tried to delete it off everything they had. Napoleon Luna locked it back. All of these MAGA shills that came out initially cheering on immediately went, oh, shit, this story is actually true. We need to run cover on it now. Well, that was just a week ago, and there's been some interesting developments in those JFK files since. Because since that story came out, which of course they debunked as having never happened, well, we've now learned that those files that were supposed to be declassified for us according to Donald Trump, will no longer be released. Oh, yes, those files that the CIA definitely didn't come and take out of Tulsi's office that she was declassifying. I'm sure President Trump has a great reason for that. And JD covered it right here.
So y'all remember when this guy was running for office and he said that they were going to release all of the JFK files, and everybody was like, whoa, he was one of the greatest presidents we've ever had, and we really want to know what's going on, and the government's been hiding it from us for so long. And now they're saying they're not going to give us all of those files either, just like the other files they only gave us half of. Just like those other files, why wouldn't they just break bread like Jesus said on this? Like, this happened a really long time ago. Everybody who was there at that time is probably long gone, so like, what's the deal? It probably has less to do with like an individual that was involved and like an organization or maybe even a foreign nation that might have been involved. And that's not just my personal speculation either. That's also according to a former CIA officer who explained that the reason that those files and a bunch of the other files that we only got half of are being blocked from being released to the American people.
So why might the CIA have raided those? So why might have the CIA come in and took those from Tulsi Gabbard? I don't know, maybe because we know exactly what those remaining files show. And they show that a certain somebody was responsible for the unaliving of JFK, even though we already know that. It's not a secret at this point. But of course, Donald Trump, he'll do anything to cover up for them, won't he? So what's really going on here? Is this really a story about how, Tulsi Gabbard's husband has cancer and that's why she...
And that's what I was saying too. It's like that's why earlier you guys heard me say I don't want to speculate, and if this is something that is true, I don't want to be on record saying, oh, Tulsi's lying. And Jose, shout out to you. Fix your mic. Jose, my mic is fixed. I have to distort the audio. I have to distort the audio for copyright purposes. But shout out to you for letting me know. Thank you. I think one thing that we see here is that this was hard for Tulsi to do. Can you guys hear me clear when I'm talking like this, or does the echo only happen when I play the video? So Jose or somebody in the chat tell me that. Because I think, from what I understand in the past, it only happens when I'm playing the video, but when I'm on this screen and I'm talking, you guys should be able to hear me clearly. So just let me know like which way you hear the echo. But yeah, from what I understand with Tulsi, this was going to be hard for her. Somebody who historically has been anti-war, and then you get in office where we got President Trump saying like, I've stopped 9 wars, and then you have people jokingly saying, yeah, but you started 12. Okay, only the video. All right, yeah, I thought so. And Jose, that's literally because I have to distort it, because YouTube will hit me with a copyright if I don't make it sound different when we're long-standing watching. So right now we've been watching over an hour. So YouTube will definitely copyright me if I don't distort the video in some way. So that's why I try to put the captions on so you guys can just read if you don't want to listen to it. Sometimes it's not that bad, but I'm working on that. So shout out to you, Jose. Thanks for letting me know. But yeah, so to what Vahala was saying, I don't want to speculate and say nothing's going on with Abraham, right? Because there very well could be something going on with her husband. And we don't want to see that for anybody, right? But it's just interesting that Tulsi was already declassifying the rest of the JFK files. Her office gets bum rushed, they get taken. And then a week later, it's like, oh, something's going on with Tulsi's husband and she's stepping down. I don't know. I don't know if I like the way that math is mathing. I feel like it is mathing. I just don't like the way it's adding up.
Has to step away. Is that really it? Or is that sort of the off-ramp because they need to get rid of her? Again, I don't know. That's still up for speculation. So what does this mean going forward? Okay, so I can only imagine who they're going to put in to replace her with. I'm sure it would be somebody fantastic. Maybe we get somebody like Ted Cruz or Lindsey Graham in there to take her place. But I think what's going to be very, very telling on this entire thing is just watching what Tulsi does going forward. Because I can promise you, Tulsi has access to all of the information on a lot of different things. And what we saw with Joe Kent has been spilling the tea on all sorts of different stuff that he's allowed to since his departure and his actual resignation out of principle that he did. So will we see the same thing from Tulsi? Or will we see her go the route of someone like Dan Bongino, where she just comes out and becomes a massive simp for the administration, abandoning all principles and values? I don't have a whole lot of faith that we're going to get anything of value out of her, unfortunately, which again, to me, big letdown. I'm not one of those people that was an anti-Tulsi people at all. She was one of my favorite politicians. She really was sort of a black pill moment for a lot of us, much like the Massie election. Tulsi Gabbard not resigning once the war with Iran kicked off really was a moment for a lot of people in politics that went, oh, wow, it's all of them. And to my point, really remember who Tulsi is. I mean, Tulsi was selling no war with Iran merch. Yes, no war with Iran t-shirts at one point. I mean, guys, you cannot have your entire ideology be centered around an issue like that, like no war with Iran, and then you're a part of an administration that goes to war with Iran, and you do not resign out of principle because of that. But again, I'd like to have some faith that, she's one of the good ones, but again, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens going forward with this one, because again, a lot of weird underlying moving pieces to it. So again, guys, we'll be back live at 5 p.m. tonight. Make sure you come by and check us out.
Yeah, shout out to Valhalla TV. If you guys want to check him out, he's usually live 5 p.m. on his channel. A lot of the times I actually get a chance to jump in that live stream because I'm usually home by that time, so shout out to him. I want to also move over to something going on in California before we go over to Stephen A. Smith. So, all right, give me a minute here, guys. Let me set this up for us. Okay, so I want us to take a look at one. We got 13 Wham ABC News covered MAGA movement rapidly expanding as Trump-backed candidates win primaries in several states. So let's actually go over there and watch that, because I think we saw the flip of this probably about a month ago, where there were more Democrats flipping seats than Republicans. I'm not saying it's starting to switch, but I think as Trump says, go vote for this person, I think that's what we saw in Kentucky with Ed and Thomas Massie. So let's take a look at this. It's called a MAGA. They're actually calling it a MAGA wave, right? But we don't got to get too overly excited about this, right? Because this is actually, this happened a couple days ago. So not relatively new, but I think it was right after Thomas Massie, his concession speech. So let's take a listen.
Come on the air right now, the MAGA movement rapidly expanding. Overnight, President Trump endorsed candidates notching more GOP wins in several states.
We're going to win this thing, and God's going to bless this great nation.
But for the same reason I entered as an ABC officer in 1983, because I had the audacity to think I could make a difference. And I did.
We're Georgians that believe in this state and believe that the great run that we've had for the last decade, it can continue on. It can continue on to the next.
The primary wins for Trump come 1 week before Texas's Senate runoff between Trump-endorsed Ken Paxton and incumbent John Cornyn. This election could have big implications in the race for the U.S. Senate majority. Tonight, our team has got you covered. Christine Frizzell breaks down why President Trump's wins are actually raising some GOP concerns. Plus, Jeff Harris tackling the clash on Capitol Hill today and the Southern Poverty Law Center in focus. But first we go to Ryan Smith at the Live Does with the pushback over new congressional maps, and Ryan, this fight is now spilling over onto the field and onto the court.
That's right, Dee Dee. The NAACP now calling on black student athletes, fans, and alumni to boycott or withhold donations entirely from public universities in several southern states, where the group now says black voting power is being weakened. This campaign follows last month's U.S. Supreme Court decision that narrowed a key part of the Voting Rights Act, spurring multiple states to redraw their congressional maps to divide majority black or Democratic-leaning districts. The NAACP president and CEO voicing his frustrations, stating here, quote, the NAACP will not watch the same institutions that depend on black athletic...
Yeah, so I'll read that for you guys, since I know that the echo could be annoying, so you might not be able to hear it correctly. It says the NAACP will not watch the same institutions that depend on black athletic prowess to fill their stadiums and their bank accounts remain silent while their states strip black communities of their voice. And that came from, I think that was Derek Johnson. Yeah, he's out in Minnesota.
Prowess to fill their stadiums and their bank accounts to remain silent while their states strip.
And he's also a Republican out in Minnesota.
Black communities of their vote. The civil rights group is urging black recruits to withhold their commitments from 8 southern states. You see them here on your screen here. Several of those states are home to nationally ranked college football and basketball programs. Critics, however, argue the boycott could end up hurting black athletes by all of those states are home to nationally ranked college football and basketball programs. Critics, however, argue the boycott could end up hurting black athletes by limiting scholarship opportunities at some of those major programs.
Meantime, Republicans could face the possibility of another impeachment push if Democrats retake Congress after the midterms. Trump was impeached twice last term, of course, but was never.
Oh, we know that that's happening. Like, we know that that's happening, and that's whether you supported Trump or not. I think at this point, most people know that that's happening. At any point in time, when the Democrats take back the House, they've already made it clear that Trump is getting impeached. They're going to impeach anybody they can. They're not going to be nobody is going to be safe. It's going to be crazy. Signal Corp said Dixieland Dems at it again. Rackster, Rebecca, you don't hear why Tulsi resigned. Yeah. Okay, so he's talking to somebody in the chat. Yeah, shout out to you guys. Signal, shout out to you. Thanks for stopping by. Rackster, shout out to you guys. Thanks for stopping by. Let's keep watching.
Never convicted, in part due to Republicans controlling the Senate. Democrats held the House, where impeachment articles originate. If Dems flip both chambers, the GOP firewall, essentially, that could disappear. Here's House Speaker Mike Johnson on Trump's endorsements.
The president has the strongest endorsement in history of politics, as I mentioned. But we don't demand loyalty to the president. What I demand as Speaker of the House is loyalty to our core principles, the principles of our party, which are the principles of America.
Meantime, a new AP North poll found Republicans are more unhappy with Trump's handling of the economy than they were a few months ago. Let's take a look here. About 6 in 10 Republicans, they approve. And that's down from February when it was 8 in 10 approved. For Americans, Trump's overall approval rating stands at 37%, slightly up from 33% in April.
Whether you've got money or not, I highly recommend you grab this. If you own a car, even if it means skipping a...
Today, a high-profile loss in Kentucky.
Okay, so this one right here, the reason why I'm going to include this in what we're watching, Trump's endorsement power on full display in Tuesday primaries. Trump's endorsement power on full display in Tuesday primaries. So that's part of the reason why we're watching this, because as we see the midterms come up, it's important for us to take a look at Trump's endorsement power, because he's flexing on us, right? He's flexing. Raxter said, guess she's not here anyway. Her husband has cancer. Yeah, that's what we heard about Raxter. And that's why I was saying I hope that, we want to wish Tulsi and Abraham well. We were seeing some things where we don't know if we like the way that that's lining up, because we know a week prior to this, her office was bum rushed, right? And all of the JFK files that she was declassifying were taken from her office. But, so hopefully she's not, people were alluding to the fact that she might be just putting something out there to leave peacefully because she doesn't want to say she's quitting the way Joe Kent did. But we don't want to speculate. So we want to definitely be praying for Tulsi if anything's going on with Abraham and her family, and wish them well. But I want us to take a look at Trump's, let's call it his endorsement flex, right? Like every single time he backs a candidate, it seems like he's able to flex on that. So I wanted to look at that because they said that his endorsement power was on full display on Tuesday. Raxter says, understand. Oh, by the way, hi. What's up, Raxter? Shout out to you. I said thanks for stopping by earlier. Make sure you hit that like button and sub if you're not already here, Raxter. We go live every single day except Sunday. I did not go live on Friday because a slight schedule change. Me and wifey have been back in the gym, so I am not only in a lot of pain, but my body's recovering. So shout out to you guys. Shout out to you, Raxter. Let's keep watching.
Taking center stage after Tuesday's primary in 6 states.
NBC's Alice Barr reports from Washington on how President Trump's endorsements shook up some key races.
President Trump notched another victory in his scorecard of Republican foes ousted from Congress with his hand-picked challenger, Ed Galbraith.
I want to thank President Trump for his support.
Projected to topple 7-term Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie, who defended the times he bucked his party.
If the legislative branch always votes with the president,
We do have a king.
Clashes with Massie over the budget, the war with Iran, and the Epstein files angered President Trump.
Thomas Massie's a terrible congressman.
The president now setting his sights on a Texas Republican Senate runoff, pitting longtime incumbent Senator John Cornyn against Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who just picked up President Trump's endorsement.
He thinks I'm the best candidate, and I will actually help him get some of these things done.
The president on Truth Social called Cornyn a good man he'd worked well with, but said, quote, he was not supportive of me when times were tough. Cornyn responding to the Paxton endorsement.
I think that will certainly have an impact, but we're not giving up the fight.
The power of the president's backing on full display, even as his approval ratings are falling, with control of the House and Senate on the line. In another race critical to that power battle, Georgia Republican Congressman Mike Collins and former football coach Derek Dooley, projected to be headed for a Senate runoff to take on Democratic incumbent Senator John Ossoff in a battleground state key to deciding the fate of the president's agenda in Congress.
Also in Georgia, former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms defeated a crowded Democratic field for governor, set to take on the winner of a Republican runoff between Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones and billionaire healthcare executive Rick Jackson. While an increasingly swing state, Georgia hasn't elected a Democrat governor in nearly 30 years. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Atlantic power battle, Georgia Republican Congressman Mike Collins and former football coach Derek Dooley, projected to be headed for a Senate runoff to take on Democratic incumbent Senator John Ossoff in a battleground state key to deciding the fate of the president's agenda in Congress. Also in Democratic incumbent Senator John power battle, Georgia Republican Congressman Mike Collins and former football coach Derek Dooley, projected to be headed for a Senate runoff to take on Democratic incumbent Senator John Ossoff.
God, man. Yeah, you guys, I'm not gonna lie, you did see me rewind that a couple times because I had to hear that. Who's voting for John Ossoff? Like, I need to know this because in a projected Democratic poll, this guy literally is like, he was over AOC. And I was thinking to myself, who the hell is voting for John Ossoff? I'm sorry, he's a little weird to me. Just him in particular, he gives off a little weird to me. Now, if you guys know better information about him, you can tell me. But, I mean, John Ossoff, he's on my radar. He's on my radar. Frederick Henderson said, the hell with Gabbard. She's nothing more than a psycho fan for Trump. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of people who love Trump, but they started out supporting him, Frederick. But then based on what he did, they said they just can't do it. This is why Joe Kent is no longer with us. And I was a huge Joe Kent fan, right? I don't like the fact that Tulsi's stepping down, but we've been talking about the fact that historically, Tulsi Gabbard's anti-war. So during the RNC, during President Trump's campaign trail, she was the one with the MAGA hat telling us that this is the guy that's going to keep us out of war. I think it's been conflicting for her to stay in his cabinet with him doing what he's doing. Now, granted, like we said, if something is actually going on with Abraham, we want to pray for them and we want the family to be well. But we just think, we don't know. We don't know, Frederick. Like, the way things are lining up, she was just declassifying JFK files about a week ago, right? About a week ago. And now look at where we at, right? Like, now she's actually resigning. So, hopefully everything is well with Abraham. Let's keep watching.
In a battleground state key to deciding the fate of the president's agenda in Congress.
Also in Georgia, former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms defeated a crowded Democratic field for governor, set to take on the winner of a Republican runoff between Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones and billionaire healthcare executive Rick Jackson. While an increasingly swing state, Georgia hasn't elected a Democrat governor in nearly 30 years. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
I became the dad I swore I'd never be, the one who breaks every promise he makes to.
Yeah, so John Ossoff actually winning in Georgia is actually a big deal. It's been 30 years since they've had a Democratic governor. It's actually a big deal if this guy wins. I just don't know if I want it to be him. I've been watching Mr. Ossoff for some time now. I don't know. That's why I said, you guys, if you have information about him in the chat where you feel like, oh, Q, you're wrong because of this reason, please drop it in the chat. But, I mean you guys got to watch out for him. He gives me vibes that I don't necessarily appreciate. So, I mean, when I literally to see him ahead of AOC in a presidential polling. I'm not saying AOC would necessarily be the best. I'm just saying, I'm like, who exactly is voting for John Ossoff? That's interesting. All right, let's go over to Bill O'Reilly before we hit Stephen A. Because Bill O'Reilly talks about Trump's influence over the GOP. This is a big deal. This is why I'm playing these videos, because as we go into the midterms, we need to pay attention to President Trump's flex. And his flex is his endorsement power. That is his flex. And we need to see this thing at work, right? Because I did not appreciate what happened in Kentucky. And I don't want to see that happening again. This is why people like the likes of Nick Fuentes are like, hell no, oh no, I don't care if it's a Democrat. Someone needs to do something about the GOP. So let's take a look at what Bill O'Reilly had to say about Trump's influence over the good old party, the grand old party. Let's see.
Massie. Didn't want anything. So Donald Trump did very well last night in the primaries across the country, and he remains the most powerful politician in the country by far. So 35% of the Republicans, mostly Republicans, I would say maybe a few independents, but 35% are just right there. They're MAGA, they love him, he can direct their votes, they are behind him. Nobody else is close in this country. No one else has a 35% constituency like that. So there's a guy in Kentucky, a congressman named Thomas Massie, and you might have heard of him. He opposed almost everything that Trump did. And he's a Republican. So he got waxed by a guy named Ed Goldring, who the president endorsed over Massie.
Look at that. And now, Bill O'Reilly is a titan in journalism. He is what we will call an OG, an original gangster in journalism, right? He just said that Thomas Massie lost to a guy named Ed Gilrine. Why did he just say it like he don't know he has no idea who the hell that is? Why would Bill O'Reilly talk like that? Like, do we know Ed in Kentucky? We've heard of him. We know of him, right? But Ed is not like an AOC, right? Ed is not like a Jasmine Crockett. Ed is not even like a Elizabeth Warren, right? He's not somebody that you hear his name and you're like, oh yeah, absolutely, out in Kentucky. Like, no, right? So this is why I was like, oh, so Trump was flexing with Ed. Like, this was a straight flex, because when this guy ran, you literally had people like, who the hell is this guy? Simply because of how long Thomas Massie held his district. Let's keep watching.
Because Trump hates Massie, and you would too. If you were president and this Republican was voting against pretty much everything you wanted to do. All right, you can look it up, but he didn't want the tariffs, he didn't want the big beautiful bill, he didn't want Venezuela, this is Massie. He didn't want anything. I mean, we just do it to be a pain in the you know what. There wasn't any ideology behind it. Anyway, he's done. It lost by 10 points, that's big.
So, if I was sitting there talking with Bill about that and Bill said he just did it to be a pain, I would say, Bill, is that really why he did it? Could there be any evidence that a man could just not agree with Trump and that's why he's not voting for what Trump's putting out there? Now, Bill O'Reilly might say, yeah, sure. Like President Trump can push forward legislation that, a congressman can say, I just can't support that. But everything? I'm like, well, dude, it depends on what he's pushing forward, right? I mean, Thomas Massie, we're talking about another Republican here. We're not talking about a far left liberal that's off his rocker, right? We're talking about a Republican that has held his district for a number of years, very long time, very popular guy, very charismatic movement behind him. I mean, the guy takes stage and people are screaming Massie, and it's a concession speech. Like, we're not talking about a Democrat here. So I don't know if it's just Thomas Massie trying to be a pain in the president's butt, or if it's just Thomas Massie being the only one that's like, yeah, I'm a Republican just like him, and yeah, I'm saying no to this. Like, I'm bold enough to just say no.
For an incumbent to lose that big. So he's out. And it is a very conservative district in Kentucky. So this guy Goldring will walk right in and there's some big scam or something. In Texas, the president has endorsed Ken Paxton over John Cornyn, the incumbent. Both Cornyn and Paxton are conservatives, but Cornyn didn't like the Mar-a-Lago thing, didn't stand behind Trump on that. That's what got him. That's what got Cornyn. All right, so Trump was infuriated by the Mar-a-Lago FBI raid. Cornyn said, maybe it's necessary. Over. So Paxton has to run now a pretty aggressive race against a Democrat named James Tallarico. The press loves him. So it's not a fait accompli. The Mar-a-Lago thing did Cornyn the incumbent. Both Cornyn and Paxton are conservatives, but this guy Gallray will walk right in and there's some big scandal or something. In Texas, the president has endorsed Ken Paxton over.
I'm going to tell you right now, that right there, I don't know. I don't know. That right there, this is probably one of the races I'm most interested in. This is probably one of the most. So President Trump endorsed Ken Paxton, right? Okay. So he endorsed Ken Paxton. Ken Paxton is 63 years old, right? So for those of you guys who don't know who James Tallarico is, because I talk about this guy a lot, I remember introducing James Tallarico to the channel probably well over a year ago. This guy right here, Bill O'Reilly said the media loves him. No, the media doesn't love him. They're more like drunk in love with him. Just think Jay-Z and Beyonce. That's how good this guy is. Like, James Tallarico is somebody who I was extremely interested when I first started paying attention to him. And when I really started to watch this guy, first of all, outside of politics, he's a problem. Because theologically, he can align with a lot of people. I'm not saying that he's right. I'm not saying that his exegesis is on point. What I'm saying is that he's good at what he does. Like, James Tallarico is a problem. He literally is. He's a problem. He is the guy that beat Jasmine Crockett. He is 37 years old. He is extremely charismatic. He has a great head of hair. He talks very well. He talks about Jesus publicly. He's not afraid to talk about his faith. He resonates with a lot of people. So, I mean, President Trump endorsed Ken Paxton. I could see why he would endorse Ken Paxton. I could see this. You know, even though I don't like this, I could see it, but I'm just telling you that James is not going to go down without a fight. Like, some people right now might be like, oh, Q, you're out of your mind. Like, James Tallarico is a baby. No one knows who he is. No one knew who he was really versus Jasmine Crockett. And a lot of people knew who Jasmine Crockett was, and he still won. So I'm actually not that intimidated by Ken Paxton, even though that's who President Trump endorsed. I just think we have to see how that plays out. But, that's going to be an interesting race. The media more than loves James Tallarico. The media is drunk in love with James Tallarico.
John Cornyn, the incumbent. Both Cornyn and Paxton are conservatives, but Cornyn didn't like the Mar-a-Lago thing, didn't stand behind Trump on that. That's what got him. That's what got Cornyn. All right, so Trump was infuriated by the Mar-a-Lago FBI raid. Cornyn said, maybe it's necessary. Over. So Paxton has to run now a pretty aggressive race against a Democrat named James Tallarico. The press loves him. So it's not a fait accompli that Texas is going to have two Republican senators. Paxton's in for a race. But Trump endorsed Paxton, and Cornyn was seeing the corner. So you can see this goes on and on. Now,
so you see how he said that? Bill said Trump endorsed Paxton, and that was the end of Cornyn, right? So now we have to see. Trump now, he endorses Paxton. Will that be the end of Tallarico? I don't think so. I actually do not think that. Bill O'Reilly said he's set up for a fight. I don't think that that's going to be the end of it. Sure to get the Latino vote. I mean, okay, Robert. So who are we referring to? We referring to Paxton or Tallarico? Because, I mean, Jasmine Crockett in Texas, she didn't do the demographic that Jasmine Crockett didn't do well amongst in Texas was younger Caucasian white men, which I wasn't surprised by that, and then younger Latino men, right? So she didn't do well amongst those two demographics. Those are the two demographics that James Tallarico was able to take from her. Dude, if you guys don't pay attention to him, you should go start just watching him. Like, the dude's a problem. I'm just telling you, he is. Like, when you have someone that speaks and they resonate with a lot of people just off of charisma, knowledge, he's using his theology, he's well educated. I mean, he was a school teacher. I'm like, dude, Paxton is not just gonna run over this dude. Like, I get that he's only 37 years old and he's not well known. When he already stepped into the ring with someone who was pretty well known. Jasmine Crockett's pretty well known. And you had people that didn't like Jasmine Crockett that were still gonna vote for her because they had no idea who James Tellerico was. So I'm just letting you guys know, like, this 37-year-old dude is a problem. Like, even though Trump just endorsed Paxton against him, he's not going to just topple him like that.
We don't cover a lot of this party stuff here. I think you know that if you've watched me for a while. We don't really get involved with party politics because there's no reason to. You know the way I think about the major stories because I tell you. And I don't take a party line ever. And if you want the Republican Party's point of view, you watch Fox or Newsmax. If you want the Democrats' point of view, you watch CNN or MS or the networks. That's it. Why do they need me in the middle of this? And I got more important things to do. Like your life. To be wandering around in party politics, which I do not want to do. I have never done it. And I never will do it. The independent vote in November for the midterms, that's the vote. So Republicans are have an advantage because of the MAGA people. They'll all go Republican. And Democrats have no leadership at all. Kamala Harris is back. Yikes. The independents, though, man, they don't like this Iran thing. They do not like this. So,
and that matters. Bill O'Reilly shouting out the independents matter because the independents are the one that usually sway the vote, right? They stay in the middle and they wait and see what the crazies are going to do. And then as things fall into place, the independents are like, okay, we're not going to go with that guy. We're going to choose that guy, right? They don't like the war in Iran. They don't. A lot of people don't, but it matters when we got midterms coming up and the independents are not happy about what in particular is going on.
Oh, you can't call it now because stuff's going to happen in Iran soon. We'll get to that in a moment. Summing up, President Trump remains the most powerful politician by far in the United States of America. His endorsement can make or break you. If I were Lisa Murkowski, the senator from Alaska, I'd be a little bit worried. Be a little bit worried up there, Lisa. And others as well. And that's the memo. Turning 65 years old.
This is what adventure looks like.
All right, so shout out to Bill O'Reilly for that. I think that I hope a lot of people take heed to some of the things that he's saying. Like I said, Bill O'Reilly is a titan in the game. He's an OG. He sees it. He calls it like it is. Some people are usually like, I can't believe you watch Bill O'Reilly. He still has his own show. I'm like, yeah, pipe down. We watch a lot of people that still have their own show, right? It is what it is. What I can appreciate about Bill O'Reilly in his older age is that, he doesn't hold back much. And that's what I can appreciate about a lot of people in their older age. That's why I think a lot of my audience is older than me, because I appreciate that about them. I can appreciate the truth. I like that. So I want to move over now to Stephen A. Smith. Officer Brandon Tatum, had Stephen A. Smith on his podcast. They were on there for about an hour and a half long to 2 hour podcast, and I actually enjoyed it. Stephen A. Smith in particular talks about something that was very the most betraying thing that he experienced, things within the black community that are conflicting to him when it comes to the Democrats. And I thought he was spot on with a lot of this. So we're going to take a listen to some of that. It's not the whole podcast. I went dead in the middle. So if you guys actually want to listen to this podcast, you actually go to Brandon Tatum's channel or Stephen A. Smith's channel, and they have it on there. But we're going to pick up off where they're talking about pretty much his betrayal, the black community, politics, Democrats, what Ice Cube did by going to the Democrats and the Republicans, and how he was able to strike a deal with the Republicans and actually not the Democrats. So let's take a listen.
Black folks give me mad love. Like this notion that black folks have abandoned me. They ain't been out with me. I get love from black people everywhere because, damn it, I'm not just a black man, I'm a brother. And I love my peeps. And so I know that most black folks, they know what time it is, but some try to give the impression that most.
But why do you think it's like that? Do you think it's because they feel like they have to say that, right? Some of the people that come out, they feel like they gotta attack you. It's like a group think.
Obfuscating this emotion. And let's be fair in this regard. They're wrong. But when you listen to intellectuals from our community talk about our community in an empathetic and sympathetic way, what they're highlighting is all that we've endured and all that we've been through and all the residual scars that come with it. And as a result, that's how we can be. Honest reaction. Like the one woman that said that about me, I'm MAGA, and she don't know what she's talking about, and she should be ashamed of herself as well as she knows, to be honest with you. But I also had to remember somebody in her family reminded me, you know when Trump laid off a whole bunch of federal workers, a lot of those people were her loved ones. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? And so if I then go on the air and I'm acknowledging there's actually something he's done right, something not having to do with that. It could be the border. It could be, joining Israel and bombing Iran or something. It could be the terror war, whatever, trying something new because what we were trying wasn't working, right? That's not what they're hearing. They're hearing that this man just laid off these federal workers, and that's my loved ones that are suffering, and here you are complimenting themselves. And that's what they do. So whether it has nothing to do with right or wrong, it has everything to do with.
And this part is true because I've watched Stephen A. Smith. Some people will be like, he's a grifter, right? And it's like, I kind of hate that concept. I mean, I get where it has a place, but a person is entitled to change their mind. So I really hate this level of ignorance when people have this. When they're like, oh my God, Stephen A., he's the biggest grifter in the world. Listen, a lot of black households are raised to vote Democrat. Like, I can tell you guys that right now. And a lot of the time, when they are saying to vote Democrat, they're not telling us why. Right? I was probably one of the first people in my family that started to buck that system when my mother and I started to talk shortly before I went in the military and I was old enough to vote, and she was getting ready to vote for someone and I didn't particularly care for that person, and I remember asking her, why are you voting this way? Right? Like, why are you voting for this particular person? And if I'm honest with you guys, she didn't have a great reason. It wasn't convincing enough for me, at least the way as critical as my mind was, it wasn't. Right? And I remember thinking to myself, that was the onset of my mother seeing me drift away from what most of the family was doing and me start to say, hey, I think we need to push back on this a little bit. Like, if we're just voting Democrat just to vote, don't you think it's fair just to look at both sides for the sake of just seeing what both sides are talking about? And people would look at me like I had two different heads, right? So it's like, I get it when Stephen A. Smith says this. He's been called like a MAGA grifter. He's been called someone who's betrayed the black community. He's been called someone who, man, Stephen A. Smith is a raccoon. And I'm like, man, listen, especially when other black people do this, I'm like, please stop doing this. Like, please, let's educate ourselves on the fact that the first few black men that were able to join government were actually a part of the Republican Party and they were not Democrats. Yes, eventually that started to happen, but it didn't start to happen with the first few people that joined Congress and that were able to be a part of government that were black. They actually were Republicans. So I was like, I don't have anything against Democrats. I don't care if you want to vote Democrat, right? I'll vote whichever way that I feel like voting. But I still think it's worth looking at both sides, especially if you are a person of, if you're an African American person or you're a Latino person. Don't just go in there and just like, be voting crazy just for the sake of like your people do that and that's what you understand. Educate yourself. And that's part of the reason why the channel exists. Like when the Lord moved me in the direction of talking about politics at first, it was it was almost debilitating for me. I'm like, Lord, I don't want to do this. Like, I know that I'm going to have, especially black people, jumping in and out and saying, man, brother, why do you believe this way? And you know that I'm like, man, I'm not trying to hear this. But my job is to get on here and just be transparent with you guys. When people try to put me in a box, those of you guys that hang out with me often on the channel know that that's not going to happen, right? I look at both sides and I want to see what both people are talking about, right? This is why I can tell you guys that the person that probably has deported the most immigrants was actually a black Democrat, right? It was Obama. But most people don't know that, right? They sit there and they think that it's either President Trump or some other, like historically white president that has done something, drastic. I'm like, dude, you guys have no idea. Educate yourself on the Obama administration and what President Obama did. He was cutthroat. He did so many things that people don't even know about. That's why when they're like, President Trump just ran into this country and he didn't ask Congress. So what? Obama didn't ask Congress either. And it wasn't even on the news. Like, it wasn't even talked about. So this is the reason why it's so important for us to educate ourselves on these things and not just to vote one way. So when Stephen A. Smith says this, I'm like, yep, I can understand exactly where he's coming from when he's talking this way. D, shout out to you. Thanks for saying hi in the chat. Let's keep watching.
That's how folks feel, and especially when it comes to us. We operate a lot off of how we feel.
Right.
That's just who we are.
I want to jump in on this because I feel like we do it at a crazy rate when it comes to Trump and Republicans.
Okay.
But I don't feel like we had that same energy when it comes to them Democrats.
We don't.
Because they mad, losing sleep at night. I can't believe you support Trump. I can't believe you support Obama. I can't believe you support these Democrats. In the city you live in, that you've been voting for 16 years, and they ain't done nothing. They not even trying to do nothing. Somebody told me an interesting story about Ice Cube. And I think the world know a little bit about what Ice Cube did. He went to the Republicans
and the Democrats.
And he went to the Republicans and the Democrats. He went to the Republicans and said, hey, I want to do something for the black community. He struck a deal with the Republicans, with Donald Trump, to do something incredible.
They were willing to listen to him, and the Democrats were not.
Reparations. And I'm not for reparations whatsoever anymore. We passed that point. We can't do it. But
you can't do it when you're 39 trillion in debt.
Well, you can't do it when you're 39 trillion in debt. We should have done it a long time ago. And you can't do it because we can go into a whole thing on this with the Democrats. But let me get back to the point. He struck a deal with Donald Trump. He go to the Democrats, they brush him off. They shoot him. They didn't even talk to him. And I feel like you've been saying this forever. They've been doing us like this for years. Because when you sold out to one side, they don't have to work for you. They like, we got the hook line. Now let's go to LGBTQ. Now let's go to...
That's the Bible is circulating right now. Like I said this yesterday. No. I've been saying this for over 25 years. Over 25 years, whenever I've been speaking on politics, I have always said, for one election, I want black folks to vote Republican just to put the Democrats on notice that you have to work for our vote too. And to put the Republicans on notice, you might have a shot at getting our vote if you cater to us the way you cater to other communities. That's all I've ever said. In other words, flatter me. You go to a house, you don't just buy it without looking, walking through it. You don't buy a car without test driving it. Wait a minute, flatter me. Show me what you got. I want us to go to the polls, and I want us to have them wondering, who are we going to support? That's what I would love.
Yeah, and I can see what Stephen A. Smith is saying here. There's nothing wrong with that. I can see him saying this and why he's saying this, because most of the time when most black voters go to the polls, people think, oh, they're going to vote for Democrats, right? Like that's not a secret. That's the reason why he's saying, I would like for us to go to the polls, and they are actually wondering, who are the black people going to vote for, right? So I don't think anything's wrong with him saying flatter me and him saying things like this, right? I don't think that the Republican Party would have a problem with that. I just think that when you have a party that's convinced, because historically they've watched an entire race of people go towards the Democratic Party even when the Democratic Party wasn't for them. And if you guys are saying to yourself, well, how could black people vote for the Democratic Party and the Democratic Party be against them? Easy, by not educating themselves. by just saying like we vote Democrat, we vote blue. That's what black people do because of the civil rights movement. No, that's not what black people do because of the civil rights movement. You're not supposed to be voting like that. I don't care if your family has voted Republican for 100 years. If there's a Republican up there that's crooked as hell, you need to be looking at both sides and you need to be deciding if that year you're willing to vote for a Democrat. Like, I just think that that's the common sense way to approach it, is to look at both sides and gather information from both sides and make a decision that way. There's no way that people should be going to the polls blindly and saying, yeah, I'm going to vote like this because this is how we've always voted. Absolutely not.
Why do you think we can't get past that hump? Even in this last election, more black men voted for Donald Trump than ever before for the Republican side. Right. But black women were hook, line, and sinker for Kamala Harris. One, I have a family member that's AKA. Okay. So she don't care what Kamala did. She go, I'll vote for my spread. Right. But you see a disproportionate amount of black women voted for Kamala. When the woman can't do an interview for 30 seconds without talking word salad. She has no accomplishments. I mean, no significant accomplishments. Let me say significant accomplishments.
Okay, but let me
that will lead me to believe that she's qualified to be president.
I will push back on you with this. She's educated. She has a law degree. She's the former attorney general in San Francisco and for the state of California. She's a former United States senator. She's a former vice president. I'm just saying that.
Let's go point by point. She was in California, but she was responsible for incarceration.
No, I get it. Don't get me started with weed now. But I get it. But what I'm saying to you is that I'm going to be protective of you just as much as I'm going to be protective of her when it comes to classifying whether or not we're qualified. When we've seen throughout history a lot of white folks that had connections that ended up getting jobs and getting positions that people, even they themselves as white folks challenged whether this person or that person actually deserved it. You know, and so, for example, Hillary Rodham Clinton was not black. She's a white woman. But we know she was qualified. Now, a lot of people might not like her. They might say, I'm not voting for her. But what you couldn't do is question her qualifications, you know? And so we might not have liked George W., but then he was the governor of Texas. Yes, we might not have liked H.W., but then he did the CIA, and he was a former senator, and he was a former vice president. I mean, damn, you know, and then you want to say, so when you look at certain things, it's like throughout history. We've had people that were qualified that were getting crucified and criticized. We had people that were not qualified and were getting supported. Ronald Reagan was an actor. You understand? Became the governor of California, ultimately the president of the United States. And a lot of people on the right, they revered this man. To the end of the day, it happened. So I don't look at it that way. What I would say instead is that when we look at the Democratic Party today, and you listen to supporters of the Democratic Party, they will talk about a plan that the Democrats have in place that benefits our community. My point is, where is it? When has it worked? Okay? Now, I didn't say go vote Republican. What I said was, let's stick right here. When I interview, I had my show, Straight Shooter with Stephen A., Sirius XM POTUS Radio every Wednesday night, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I tell people this. I've had 55 guests. 28 Democrats, 27 Republicans. All right? You know how many people mad at me because I had 27 Republicans? They pissed off. They pissed off. I talked to you. They pissed off. I talked to Daniels. And I'm like, they talked to Candace Owens. They pissed off to her, Megyn Kelly. And I'm like, why? Because you see, what I want is, I don't resent you. I'm looking at you as edifying me. Tell me what you like about the Republicans. Tell me.
Right. And that's the reason why they get mad at him that he talks to those people, because they don't educate themselves on who those people are. They just say in their mind, that's a Republican or those people on the other side, so you shouldn't be conversating with them. You shouldn't be talking to them. And I don't agree with that. Like Stephen A. Smith, he has started to drift from being a far left liberal to moderate, and he's been doing that for the better part of a decade, I would say. So it's like when I saw him doing this, I actually didn't hate him for it. I was very curious as to how the black community was going to respond to it, and a good amount responded the way that I thought that they would, right? They got upset with him for just simply talking to the other side, and that's why he's saying things like, but why? You know, he's like, I don't just condemn you just because you're on the other side. If you like this person, okay, why do you like this person? If you like the Democrats, great. Why do you like the Democrats? If you like the Republicans, great. Why do you like the Republicans? And I don't see anything wrong with examining that. But some people, they feel like it's a crime to simply just examine the other side. And that's when I feel like, especially as African-American people, we have to do better with that.
What you have against the Democratic Party. And then I want to go to the Democratic Party and I want to say, what do you think about this? Because this guy said this, and this girl said that, and it sounds like it makes a lot of sense to me. How do you answer that? Because we're inching closer to the truth. And then you realize, and I had a Democrat say this to me. My team was there, we were in Vegas. I'm not going to say his name because I don't know if he wants me to do that.
Oh, already teaching them to customize and save Liberty Mutual.
No. Math.
The shadow of Jesus Christ, the tabernacle.
His position, he's a former football player. And he's got his podcast and all of this stuff. And he said, yo, man, you sound like one of them. And I said, I don't give a damn what you say. I sound like respectfully. It's not it. It's that I'm a journalist by trade, and I'm fair. I am not going to do something just because. I said, you understand that I'm somebody that can sit down with the Ku Klux Klan and interview them. Even if they were using the N-word, I could talk, I could look them dead in the face because it doesn't negate the fact that I got an abundance of questions to ask and I want the answers to. And that's what I came for. So you can try all you want to with distractionary insults and all that stuff, but I'm coming for the answers to the questions that I have. So that's my objective. And I said that to him. And he said, look, bro, let me keep it a buck with you and just tell it to you like this. He said, listen to me. We are living in very serious times. I'm swearing to you. This is what he said. The truth. He said, the truth ain't meant to be told sometimes. He said, certain things. I said, wait a minute, what you talking about? He said, I don't give a damn what it is that they're doing right. It's nothing compared to what they're doing wrong. Therefore, you should never say they're doing something right. And I looked him dead in the face and I said, my brother, we will never agree. I'm not like that. I can't look at you and know that if you did 10 things wrong, but we're talking about this 11th thing, and that 11th thing you did right, I'm supposed to act like you didn't do it right, just because. I can't do that. I can acknowledge the 10 things you did wrong and acknowledge the one thing you did right, but I can't ignore the one thing you did right just because I'm trying to get everybody to live on the 10. You do that. With your podcast. I can't do that. I'm not built like that. There's something to me that's inherently unfair about that. It's disingenuous. And it's not about the politicians. It's not about the administration. It's about in Trump's case, for example. What about the 77 million people that voted for him? Y'all are thinking, oh my goodness, they must not care about black people. They might not care about these people. They must not care about migrants, whatever. Who told you any of that mattered to them? Who told you millions of them didn't vote for him just because of the economy? Who told you another few million of them didn't vote for him just because they're pro-choice? Who told you they didn't vote for him because they wanted certain voices on the Supreme Court that they knew the libs wouldn't give them? You see what I'm saying? It's like, if you're telling me you're not voting for them, that's fine. But the why matters. And when you're willing to ignore the why and castigate everybody with a broad brush, but they don't want to do it for yourself. I can't relate to that. Do you think that's not fair? That's just not fair.
Do you think that as a for the black community? Do you think that it's ever going to change significantly enough where we can be more competitive in the marketplace?
I think that the right person in office here has got to be.
I'm saying as a community.
But here's what I mean by that. You have to have somebody in a leadership role that says, excuse my language, stop the bullshit. Now, you got to be black. It got to be black. It got to be black. Talk to your own people. It's got to be black.
Because I feel like community can't hear from white person.
You know, listen.
Because Donald Trump said, what do you got to lose? And everybody mad.
They can hear it. But you know what? Trump's a different animal. We'll talk about that in a second. But the thing about it is that you've got to be somebody that is very real and very authentic about what really plays us. The reality is like any other community, we want to make good money. We want safety in our streets. You understand? We want our quality of life solid, if not better. And we want safety. That's what we want. That's what we want. When you're talking to people and you speak in that language and you're telling them how to go get it, now you want something. Because let me tell you something right now.
When people are prospering and they got something to lose, folks learn how to behave. That's all of us. I don't give a damn what your ethnicity is. I don't give a damn how old or young you are. You learn how to behave when you got something to lose. And that's why parents are the most difficult people to get over on, because they raised you and they know you. And so they know what you like. They know what your proclivities are. They know what your tendencies are, etc. They know what's valuable to you. And that's why as you get older, you try to disguise what really moves you, because you know the more you let that out, the more vulnerable you are, and the more apt you are to be exploited. So you really give false impressions, or you give no impression at all as to what really moves you, because you don't want to empower somebody else against you. That's really what it is. And unfortunately, on too many occasions in our society, we've got politicians who've mastered the art of exploitation and not mastered the art of uplifting. And that's really what this comes down to. Black folks, again, we're emotional creatures because we've been through a lot. And when you show us you care about us, you matter. The problem is we got too many politicians that are very good at pretending they care, but not really caring when they go up on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, I want to stop that there because I want to save some of that. I don't know if I want to do a live stream in a couple hours. I might decide that because normally I try to reserve Sundays for my Sabbath. But we'll see. If not, Monday's another day. I'm just thinking about where Stephen A. is leaving off right now. That matters so much because he's saying to black people, we're emotional creatures. And when you act like to us that you care, you matter. And he's like, unfortunately, there's a lot of politicians that have got good at acting. And he's right about this. This is part of the reason why the black community is able to be okey-doke or work the way that it is. And some people get online and say whatever dumb madness that they want. Oh, you guys are simps. And, I'm like, listen, all I'm saying is don't be in my chat chimping out like Chud the Builder. Here's what I'm saying is that is one way that black people do work. Like, they do pay attention to people who care. And if you're able to get to them by acting like you care, okay, you might get a foot in the door. I'm going to tell you right now, though, when we realize that you don't care, we're going to cut you like cold. It's cold turkey at that point. It's like, oh, now we see you for who you really are. So, yeah, we're good. You can stay over there somewhere. But it's like, yeah, there's a lot of, and that's the reason why there's been so many years, 60 years, right? LBJ knew what he was saying, 100 years of like black people just going to the polls and voting for people that don't actually care about them, don't actually push legislation that's that helpful towards them at all. And it's to what Stephen Smith is saying. That's why it's so important for us to educate ourselves. It's like, I know some of it is challenging because, some people, and it's not just black people, but news is depressing. They're like, I don't want to watch the news. I don't want to watch the media. I don't want to hear what they got to say. They just focus on the bad things, but not always. A lot of the time, yes, but not always. And it's important that we don't not watch something at the expense, right, of being educated, like of knowing what's actually going on. And then we're going there voting for someone that actually, if we could see who they truly were, we would say, no, there's no way I would vote for that person. So, yeah, that's part of the reason why this channel exists and why I love doing what I'm doing. Like, talking about the things that we talk about here. Like, it's been inspiring, me doing this. It's coming up on about, 2 years now that we've been doing strictly politics, I believe it's been. I'll double check that. But yeah, shout out to you guys that came and hung out on a corner tonight with me. Again, guys, my bad about Friday, just being back in the gym. It's a new thing, meaning like it's been a couple of years since I've been strategically at it. Like, I got a good diet, so a lot of the times, like, the gym is not always high up on my desire list as it used to be when I was active duty in the Marine Corps or I was personal training people. But it's like now it's back at it because as you get older, you got to keep your body moving. One thing I said I would never be as I age was fat. I'm sorry. I said it would not happen. So I believe that literally that's a choice. So I'm like, nah, that since I was 15, 16, 13, those are things that I would always say. So I make sure that I take care of myself. That's why I changed my diet years ago the way that I did. So it's important to me to maintain my body and myself, right? I want my wife to do it as well because as you age and as you get older, like, dude, I'm in the gym with dudes that are like 75. It's crazy. It's crazy. It'll literally make you feel like, what am I doing with myself if a 75-year-old guy and an 80-year-old guy could wake up every morning and get on the treadmill and lift weights, and I don't even want to get out the bed, right? So, yeah, man, and they're titans. Like, but last time I was a part of a gym a couple of years ago, when I lived in a different location, still within the same state, when I would go there, the times me and my wife would be there, nobody would really be there with us because we would always go between like maybe 2 and 4 in the morning. But if someone did happen to show up there, it was usually always an older gentleman. And I'm talking about not somebody in their 50s. We talking about somebody in their 60s, 70s, 80s, right? And they'll be in there and they'll just they'll do their cardio first, then they'll go lift their weights. And I'm just like, man, you got 60 and 70-year-old men in here at 4 o'clock in the morning. They like to go early in the morning, the older gentlemen. They like to go early in the morning because they don't like to, they don't like to wait for the young people sitting on the weights taking pictures on their phone. They in there to actually work out. So it's like, it's just, it brings back a lot of good memories from when we were a part of a gym a couple years ago that we always went to. And just like seeing the older people in there working out. Sometimes they're in there, during the day when people are at work because they're retired and they have like spin classes and, different type of workout classes. But most of the time, the older gentlemen that still like to lift weights, telling you, man, 70-year-old men in there getting it. And they're getting it. Like, it's crazy. So it's been inspiring. Yeah, I'm in pain, but you guys know how that is when you go back to the gym. It's that you tear down your muscles and building them back up. So I got to up my protein intake so my muscle recovery can move faster. Because I'm like, God, it was painful. For those of you guys that have ever spent some time outside of the gym and then went back after a while, oh my God, it was treacherous. I was so mad at myself. I was just, you ever been working out and you just get mad because like you want to do more, but you're like, God, my strength has diminished so much. Like, what have I done to myself? So yeah, I was on that type of time in the gym. Plus, it doesn't help that before I start lifting weights, I always do cardio before I lift weights. So very rarely do I have a day where I just go into the gym and I just hit the weights. Most of the time I do 15 to 20 minutes of cardio before I hit the weights. So I can reach failure pretty quickly, if I'm not strategic in how I do my workout. Especially if I hit the 15 to 20 minutes of cardio first and then I'm circuit training, right? If I'm doing full body workout that day, it's a wrap because now I'm going in between 2 to 3 machines doing my 3 to 4 reps of 12 to 15, and it's like, yeah, it's crazy. So it's like I could reach failure pretty quickly. So I'm just feeling it, man. So Friday I had every intention on live streaming because we do it every single day except Sunday, but I was like, man, I was dead. And I think I can't remember what day Friday was, like as far as days back, but it was only a couple of days in by then, and I was cooked, man. I was cooked. So I was like, nah, it ain't gonna happen today. So I appreciate you guys stopping by, hanging out with me on the corner this Saturday night into Sunday. That's why I said I'll see if we'll go live in a few hours on Sunday. Normally that's my Sabbath day, so I try not to do much on Sunday, but if it's a short live stream, I might get into that. If not, I might do a double one on Monday. So I'll try to keep you guys posted. I might do something short for Sunday, though. I just got to see. I told you guys before I wanted to move Sunday into kind of like talking about money on Sundays as far as like retirement, financing, investing, things like that. You guys know that those of you guys that hang around the channel often, that I'm super into like my retirement accounts and like investing and like 401ks and like how the market's doing and things like that. So I wanted to start talking about some things like that on Sunday and probably switching my Sabbath to a different day, but money on Tuesdays. Yeah, that's up for grabs too. I don't mind doing it on Tuesdays either. I thought about it on Mondays just because there's a ring to it, but it's definitely a small segment I wanted to implement because I'm like, hey, since we're already doing politics and we're already doing news, it falls along the same lines, right? Then we get to talk about the congressmen and the senators that are doing trades, doing secret trades in the stock market, and how their percentage is like freaking 40% return rate on the stock market every year. I don't know how in the heck they're doing that madness, right? But even some of the financial gurus at my job, who the older guys that'll talk to me about how well their retirement portfolios are performing. And these guys have been in the game some time. Like, I got some guys who they like to compete with the market, so they won't give their money to their investors. Like, they'll invest and they'll try to compete with what the market's doing and see if they could get a higher return than what they would get if they were letting the market just take care of their money, or investors. And yeah, they come in at 26%, right? I mean, maybe the highest, I heard one guy, 28-30%. I think my highest has been a 24% return. Lowest I've been at, I think, when I first started, and I taught myself how to do stocks. So at first, when I started doing it, I'm not going to say I wasn't the best. It was like more like rebalancing my portfolio was like nerve-wracking for me. So it's like I wouldn't let anybody else do it, but because I didn't want to mess it up for a couple years, I didn't really rebalance. Like, I kind of just like stayed stagnant, and I really regret that I did that. I did that under the Biden administration, so I didn't see a lot of growth during that time. But I know during the Trump administration, I got a lot bolder. I was paying a lot more attention to the market, and yeah, man, just a couple of times that I've rebalanced. People who are right now in the market, I could see why the first time around when President Trump was in office, why so many people benefited. I had no idea what was going on. I just know people who were invested, they weren't as miserable as people who weren't. But, I had just gotten to my place of employment at that time. So I was newly invested. I was probably at match, right? Because I didn't know what I was doing and I was scared to go deeper than that. But the more my financial literacy went up, like I'm a risk taker. So I became high risk in the stock market, and it's just been like a great thing to watch. And some of that knowledge I really want to share with people, with anybody. I don't care if it's white, black, Asian people. I don't care. Whoever can jump in the chat whenever we're doing this on these days and talk about money, that would be super exciting for me. But I definitely want to share it with the community of people that look like me. Just because in the statistics it's there that black people aren't heavily invested, in retirement accounts. We're doing a lot better, than we were in past years. I think the percentages are definitely double now. A lot more black people are invested in retirement accounts and HSAs and 401ks. At one point, and they're in the stock market, and at one point in time, those numbers were grossly low. But they are still low if you compare us to our counterparts, right? So like to our Caucasian counterparts, to our Asian counterparts, we're still fairly low. Sometimes it's like 40% lower, sometimes 30% lower. But at one point in time, these numbers were grossly higher. So, it's encouraging, and I feel like more people, like shout out to Anthony O'Neill. He used to work with Dave Ramsey. And now he branched off a couple of years ago, and he's been doing At the Table with AO. So those of you that know Anthony O'Neill, and I watch that often. So he's one of the people that actually inspired me into getting into this, because there's just not a lot of African American people online talking about money. Like, there are some, and I'd love to see the uptick in it. So yeah, it's definitely a segment that I've been musing on for a while and thinking about bringing it to the channel. I've talked to my wife about it a couple times, and she's like, yeah, you should do it. My mentor definitely thinks I should do it. Sometimes it's intimidating because I don't know as much as he does. So it's like, I don't want to jump on here and just be talking out of the side of my neck. But I am the type of person that I'll do enough research on something before I put myself out there. Like, I'm not going to look crazy. So we'll see how that money thing comes, in the next month or two here. I definitely want to be knee deep in it by midsummer and summer, because then it's like we get to talk about budgeting around the holidays and, regret spending and regret buying and things like that. Those things that I don't do anymore, but, I remember doing them, right? That's why I think the biggest regret buy we can usually have is around a vehicle. So, yeah. Sometimes we see a vehicle that we really, really want. I'm not into new vehicles, meaning like I'm not going to a lot and I'm not buying a vehicle that has 0 miles on it or 5 miles on it. That's not happening, right? There are vehicles that I really want, and I will let somebody buy it and I will let them put thousands of miles on it, and then I will turn around a couple years later and I will buy that vehicle and not pay that price for it and experience the gross depreciation that we experience the minute we drive off the lot. Matt Perez. He said, I was reading the Bible and God said to John, come forth and receive eternal life. But what if he came 5th or 6th? That's hilarious. You got a good personality, Matt. I appreciate that. Shout out to you. All right, guys. So, like I said, Sunday's usually my Sabbath, but I'm thinking about coming back for a live stream on Sunday. I gotta debate that, right? Because I like to be disciplined. I'm a very consistent, disciplined person. Those of you guys that hang around here often, you know that about me. Whether it's in my eating habits, my prayer life, workout life, like this consistency and discipline are two things that I live by. So I really like to stay focused when I have a Sabbath day. But if I miss the day, that's when I usually feel like, okay, I can implement. And I really needed that rest on Friday after the gym. So I think that's why I have some leeway. So yeah, let's just see how Sunday goes. If I'm not going to post, you guys will probably see me put a hype post up, meaning I'll hype a different video up from a different YouTube content creator that I want you guys to either see, go check out and watch. So just kind of look out for those posts. I've been doing that lately. Like, I like to hype videos up. I watch smaller YouTube content creators all the time. So smaller meaning like under 20,000, under 50,000. There's a lot of 15,000. There's a lot of YouTube content creators I watch that are small and large, but I like to hype people's video. Like, I like to show love. So if it's somebody who I like, or I just watched their video and I appreciated it, or if it's just a content creator that I want to put out there and I mess with, I'll hype their video and tell you guys to go check them out. Literally, if you go to my post, you'll see some of them in there. So yeah, just look out for that. It's a good chance if I'm not going to post tomorrow, I'll probably just hype a video. But yeah, if I am, I'm going to do my best to do something that I feel like will be congruent with the Sunday, right? News accumulates over the weekend, so that's why Monday's always madness. So yeah, let's see what happens on Monday with the stock market, money, news accumulating and things like that. But on Sunday, we still got this clip from Stephen A. Smith and Brandon Tatum that I might like to finish up. And shout out to Antonio Talks, another content creator that I love to watch, a black content creator that focuses on mainly black content, very positive young guy. I love Antonio's channel. Go check him out. Maybe some things by him, maybe some things by Young Don, just some things maybe that's more communal. And also, because I like to save the political for Monday because I already know what's coming. It's accumulating. So, yeah, shout out to you guys for hanging out on the corner with me. I'm going to go ahead and wrap the live stream up. I did want to show you guys a Christian clip before we get out of here because I like to end the live stream like that often. There was something that Cliff Buell had up. Shout out to Cliff, man. He's just cruising. He has 1.1 million subscribers. He's almost at 1.2. So shout out to Cliff Buell. I wanted to play something that he had up. I think it was Lee Strobel that did it. Science describes the biblical God. So yeah, I wanted us to take a look at that because I like to try to end or begin the live stream with a Christian clip. We don't always do it, but I do my best to make it a practice. It is pretty consistent that we do have that over here. So let's go over and listen to Cliff Buell. Shout out to Cliff Buell. You guys check his channel out when you get a chance. Last name Buell. He does YouTube shorts. Focuses on Christian content. I love Cliff. We often play some of his clips here on the channel. So check him out when you guys get a chance.
This might be the single strongest scientific argument that God actually exists. Listen to this.
What kind of a cause can bring a universe into existence? Well, it must be transcendent, which means apart from creation. It must be immaterial or spirit because it existed before the physical world. It must be timeless or eternal because it existed before physical time came into being. It must be powerful given the immensity of the creation event. It must be smart given the incredible precision of the creation event. It must be personal because they had to make the decision to create. It must be caring because he so carefully crafted the habitat that we could exist in. And the scientific principle of Occam's razor tells us there would be just one creator. So that's a description of the God of the Bible, right there. That discovery of the universe having a beginning, I think, is probably the single strongest argument from science that God must exist.
This might be the single strongest scientific argument that God actually exists. Listen to this.
What kind of a cause can bring a universe into existence? Well, it must be transcendent, which means apart from creation. It must be immaterial or spirit because it existed before the physical world. It must be timeless or eternal because it existed before physical time came into being. It must be powerful given the immensity of the creation event. It must be smart given the incredible precision of the creation event. It must be personal because they had to make the decision to create. It must be caring because he so carefully crafted the habitat that we could exist in. And the scientific principle of Occam's razor tells us there would be just one creator. So that's a description of the God of the Bible, right there. That discovery of the universe having a beginning, I think, is probably the single strongest argument from science that God must exist.
This might be the single strongest.
Yeah, I thought that was Lee Strobel. Shout out to Lee Strobel, one of my favorite authors. Those of you guys that don't know Lee Strobel's story, I absolutely love it. Reporter, out with his wife one night, something ends up happening. Wife has it happens, both of them witness it. Wife has an encounter with God, like what she witnesses is just something that was miraculous, and then she has an encounter with the woman who later leads her to God. And Lee Strobel at the time is a hardcore atheist that just feels like I think in the movie he said it to the point of, I feel like I'm losing my wife to God. It was The Case for Christ. It was just a great movie. That's where Lee Strobel his start came from, and I encourage you guys to go watch that if you can. So shout out to Cliff Buell for playing that. Like I said, go check out Cliff's channel if you can. He also does long-standing content as well. Like, he's done podcast episodes and videos as well. Shout out to Lee Strobel for that description of God and all of those, what he must be in order to create. And that's why I always love to say that science is God's fingerprint, right? I'm not against science at all. I actually work at a chemical / water treatment company. So it's like I work around scientists, right? We get that, like we get that title, scientist, chemist. Those actually become part of our titles as we work in the company because of just what we do. So I work around those people all of the time. Within those groups, have scientists in my Bible study at work. So yeah, it's like we don't discount science at all, but we know that science is not God. It's just merely his fingerprint. So shout out to you guys for hanging out on the corner. I will see you guys, if not in a couple of hours, definitely on Monday. Take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. Love yourselves. Love one another. Be peaceful. Tell somebody about Jesus.